Chapter 1104.
June.
Tea City officially entered winter. The northwest monsoon brought with it a humid and cold airflow. When the cold wind hit one's face, it seemed to carry the earthy smell of the old continent's highlands. So much so that it became one of the main themes of tonight's banquet. Kawahara Michiko came to this conclusion when she wandered around the banquet hall of the castle. Of course, this was just an illusion. Separated by tens of thousands of kilometers, the northern and southern hemispheres were reversed. Even if the elements of nature had a subtle flow and exchange, it was impossible for these ordinary people to sense it. It was actually just a group of brothers in distress bragging with lingering fear and excitement after narrowly escaping death. Even though nearly a month had passed, strictly speaking, it was 3 weeks. The timing was just right. Time had quietly beautified the memories of the people who had experienced it, washing away their embarrassment and fear. With a relatively peaceful ending, the legendary nature of the process had provided them with a lot of things to talk about, so they did not reject it and were even willing to discuss the seemingly vivid, personal experience. They even gave each other the friend in distress stickers and medals. So many of the repulsive faces looked cute at this time. Yes, perhaps a considerable portion of them were just pretending for her to see. After all, the true theme of this banquet was the official establishment of the Luo Nan and his Friends Foundation, the banquet held for the foundation's benefactors. The most dazzling figures at the banquet were not the largest individual benefactors, the honorary chairman of the foundation, or the well-known wealthy people of Tea City. It was Mr. Langley. It was also not the sole director of Quantum Corporation, Mr. Mao Xingye. It was definitely not the so-called social celebrities of Tea City. The only ones who could truly be called stars were the major shareholder of the Castle Financial Group, the representative of the chairman, Mrs. Halder, Ms. Inlo, and Kawahara Michiko herself. The Castle Financial Group was considered to be of medium scale in the business world. It might not even rank in the top 5 in Tea City, let alone the entire world. But this kind of ranking was meaningless. Mrs. Halder could still say she didn't come at the banquet where the world's rich and powerful gathered. She could only send a representative to make up the numbers, and she was still the core of the entire banquet. All of this could only be because Mrs. Halder was Mr. Luo Nan's trusted aide, and Ms. Inlo was the person in charge of the foundation arranged by Luo Nan himself. It was the same for Michiko Kawahara. Otherwise, there was no way to explain how a regular bandit who had just jumped ship from Toyama Auction House could talk and laugh with these billionaires around him, accept their compliments, and influence their emotions. At the same time, he could also bear the evil thoughts deep in their hearts. Michiko Kawahara still clearly remembered Jun Kiguchi's greedy, ugly, and filthy expression on the Jade Light a month ago. Whether it was Banshin, Diching, or other places, as long as they were in this circle, there was not much difference. Just like right now. Everyone was chatting and laughing together. They were reminiscing about their friendship from their one-way trip to the Highlands. They were flattering Mr. Luo Nan for his compassion for the future development of humanity. But heaven knew what sort of inferior stories these surrounding men and women would come up with in their hearts. They would invite her, or perhaps she and Luo Nan, to play the leading roles together. But so what? Kawahara Michiko enjoyed all of this. She was like a fish in water in this banquet full of malice and calculation. This was the scene she had always pursued. For this reason, she gave up so-called love and marriage, but she never got tired of it. Even though she was always wandering halfway up the mountain. But right now, she was standing at the peak, close to the peak. The price she had to pay. What did she pay? Compared to the hidden malice in the surroundings that could engulf her at any time, this doubt and bewilderment might be the source of the occasional bewilderment that leaped out from the bottom of her heart. She knew that perhaps in this lifetime, she would never be able to make such an inconceivable transaction again. Even though this was very likely a transaction where she would enjoy first and pay later, and the subsequent price would be unbearable for her. But up until now, with her mortal eyes, she was still far from reaching the end, right? In this capitalistic society, how could she be a businessman if she did not have this awareness? Besides, she was indeed willing to pay any price for this current glory. Kawahara Michiko's smile grew more and more brilliant. At this time, the bracelet on her wrist vibrated gently. She raised her hand to indicate and apologize to the people around her. She temporarily left the crowd and picked up the call. Her voice became particularly gentle. Jia, you called very early today. Yes, Mom. Did I disturb your work? Kawahara Michiko's only son, Kawahara Jia, grew up in a single-parent family. He grew up in the oppressive environment of the Kawahara clan. Though he was still a preschool child, he was far more mature than most of his peers. He was also very sharp. It seems to be very chaotic over there. I'll call back later. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Right now, Kawahara Michiko possessed the qualifications to be willful. She had already arrived at the lounge upstairs. She sat on the sofa and slightly relaxed her long, tense toes and ankles. Mom is at a banquet. It's fine. Tell Mom. Did you have fun today? Kawahara Jia laughed. It's the same here, Mom. Today is the birthday of Mr. Luo Yuandao, Mr. Luo Nan's grandfather. He's 80 years old. His whole family is here. Kawahara Michiko subconsciously straightened her body. Mr. Luo Yuandao. Of course she knew about the old man who had a serious mental illness. With his physical condition, it would be difficult for him to hold such a grand celebration even if he was 80 years old. Besides, she had not heard any rumors. In other words, this was most likely just a family banquet. Kawahara Michiko's heart thumped. You're here. Did Mr. Luo Nan invite you? It's not like that, Mom. Today is Sunday. Weiwu and I are going to Gym Master Shio's place to do homework. We just happened to run into each other. So that's how it is. Kawahara Michiko's mood rose and fell. A thin layer of sweat actually appeared on her body. She then thought about the time difference between D City and Xia City. It was already 4:00 in the afternoon in Xia City. Banquets generally did not last until this time. Clearly, Jia just happened to run into each other. This was not bad. Just as she was thinking, Kawahara Jia lowered his voice. Mom, I know a secret. Kawahara Michiko furrowed her brows. She did not respond, but Jia said, I just heard that today is Mr. Luo Nan's birthday. But he doesn't seem to know. Is that so? Kawahara Michiko's mind immediately popped up with public information related to Luo Nan. She remembered that this person's birthday should be on the 16th of June. There was still a week to go. She quickly searched the perpetual calendar. Yes, Luo Nan's birth date was the 16th of June, 1980. Using the traditional calendar of East Asia, it was the 29th day of the 4th lunar month. This year, it just so happened to be the 9th of June on the Gregorian calendar. This matched up. Kawahara Michiko considered another problem after solving this little doubt. Her tone became a lot more serious. Jia, thank you for telling Mom these things. But I don't want you to do it again. Ha! Do you remember what Mom said to you? From the moment you came to Xia City, you should respect Mr. Luo Nan like you respect Mom. You should learn from him. You should ask him for advice. You should be a qualified retainer. You should be loyal to Mr. Luo Nan and obtain his approval. Without Mr. Luo Nan's permission, you can't reveal his secrets and other information to anyone, including Mom. Even if it's just a small matter. The other side went silent. Kawahara Michiko was actually a bit worried. She hadn't criticized her own son like this for a long time, especially now that they were separated by tens of thousands of miles. She didn't even have a video call. She felt very uncertain for a time. Just as she was about to send a video call request, Jia Heyuan asked in an even softer voice, Mom, are you Mr. Luo Nan's mistress? Kawahara Michiko had once believed that she would never be troubled by such a question. To a certain extent, she even hoped that everyone else would think this way. She wanted to turn this matter into reality. Only then would she be able to consolidate her inexplicable position. But at this very moment, when this question came out of her own son's mouth, her feelings were clearly not as simple as she imagined. She even subconsciously wanted to slap him, but Jia Heyuan wasn't in front of her. That empty slap seemed to hit her face in the end. Yeah, why do you say this? Kawahara Michiko only realized that her voice was dull and hoarse when she spoke. It was like cracking porcelain. When it was struck again, it no longer had a clear echo. Is it in Xia City?
No.
It's in Bancheng, Mom. Jia Huyuan's voice was still weak, but it was strangely steady and even calm. Many people have tried to tell me this matter, including Grandpa and Grandma. They've tried various methods and angles. It seems that I really am your weakness, Mom. Jia, even though she knew that her son was far more mature than his peers, Kawahara Michiko didn't want to hear the result of his deliberations. She didn't want to hear it at all. A second or two later, or perhaps even longer, Jia Huyuan spoke. His voice was a bit urgent. Wei Wu is calling me. Mom, don't worry. Mr. Luo Nand is a very, very good person. Many people here are. The next moment, Jia Huyuan used a very clear voice to respond. Hey, I'm here. Wait for me. The call ended immediately. Kawahara Michiko stared blankly at the bracelet on her wrist for a long time. She almost thought that she would shed tears, even if they were just a few symbolic drops. But when she heard the sound of people outside the lounge, she reflexively straightened her back. The corners of her mouth curled up, revealing a beautiful, calm, and mysterious arc. It was as if everything was under her control. In fact, she really did achieve perfect control, whether it was her external expression or her internal state of mind. Even if there were some ups and downs, they all settled down in a sentence that was like an incantation. This was what Jia had said. Mr. Luo Nand is a very, very good person, right? A 6-year-old child could tell in 2 weeks. Mr. Luo Nand is a very, very good person. The door to the lounge opened, and the noise from the banquet hall began to flow once more. Kawahara Michiko was like a mermaid. After a temporary rest, she immersed herself wholeheartedly into the turbulent flow of complicated interpersonal relationships. She was never tired of it. Chapter 1105. He Yuanzi ended the call with his mother in a hurry and ran in the direction Di Weiwu was calling him. How complicated could the layout of a sanatorium be? The relatively private places for calls were at the end of the corridor, the stairwell, the elevator, and so on. Because of this, He Yuanji bumped into someone when he ran out from the corner of the stairwell. That person was also on the phone. Yes, it's over there. Just send me the coordinates. He Yuanji was a bit confused when he heard this voice. Wasn't this the main character of his conversation with his mother, Mr. Luo Nan? Clearly, Mr. Luo Nan had taken a fancy to this private place for calls. Maybe he saw that He Yuanji was the first to go in, so he called from outside. He Yuanji didn't know whether to run or stay. While he was in a daze, Luo Nan reached out and rubbed He Yuanji's head, indicating that he should go and play with Di Weiwu. It should be to do homework. He Yuanji was hypnotized. He walked over in a daze and faintly heard Luo Nan say, "It's not convenient to ask right now. They're trying their best to make me forget about this. I don't want to use it to disgust people. I'll just go pay my respects next week." Even though He Yuanji was much more mature than his peers, it was hard for him to determine what Luo Nan was talking about without enough information. Right now, almost everyone in the corridor on this floor of the sanatorium was related to Mr. Luo Nan. He Yuanji had only walked a few steps when the fat Mr. Mo Peng touched his head. He even said that he needed an excuse to be immortal. Sure enough, the customs of Ban City were very different from those of Xia City. He had to adapt to them one by one. Don't bully me. Mr. Luo Nan's call was very short. He followed closely behind He Yuanji. He Yuanji hurriedly turned around and bowed seriously. He was apologizing for his actions, which he didn't know if he had exposed himself earlier. Mo Peng didn't pay attention to him at all. Instead, he clenched his fist in a very serious manner. It was the hand that had touched He Yuanji's head. Mo Peng swung it twice and tapped in the air. He must be following some kind of visual logic that they couldn't see. A second later, Mo Peng swung his arm and shouted with a suppressed voice, "Double kill." Luo Nan reached his hand out to touch He Yuanji's forehead as he was shouting. Luo Nan slapped his hand away. "What are you doing? Those who see it have a share." Mo Peng was grinning from ear to ear. Thanks to this little bro, I'll have 2 slots to experience the 10 days in the Wilderness expansion pack. Don't miss it if you go the wrong way. This experience card is for you. And shouldn't it be given to Jia? Mo Peng blurted out. What games are kids playing? 10 days in the Wilderness is a special tutorial. Children under 13 can't touch it. At this time, Hyunji decided to play the role of a childish person of the same age. How could he not see Mr. Luo Nen acting as if he could not see through his cousin's clumsy acting skills? But then again, this should be a birthday present, right? Half a second later, Luo Nan responded with the same subpar acting skills and lines. Fine. I accept the sincerity of a brother and the good fortune of Jia. Hyunji revealed an innocent smile at the right time. Mo Peng also laughed happily. He was truly happy. I'll send it to you. Remember this favor later. Take me flying. Luo Nan, who had left behind a glorious battle record at Frost River Reality, took charge of this matter. No problem. Let's go to the hero seat. I'll remember. After Luo Nan's performance was rewarded, Luo Nan patted Mo Peng on the shoulder and walked toward his grandfather's room. Mo Peng was already making up for his slip of the tongue later. Pia, there's nothing good about that adult-oriented game. Brother, Hyunji corrected him, very seriously. You're my elder, Mr. Mo Peng. Hey, Jia, you've been slacking off for far too long. Diwei gave Hyunji a senior command. Luo Nan checked the new electronic experience card in his hand and pretended not to see it. The purchase date for the experience card was yesterday. He laughed again and flipped his hand inside the sleeve of his t-shirt. When it came out again, there was an old notebook in his hand. He arrived outside his grandfather's room, but he did not immediately push the door open. He just looked at the situation inside the room, through the glass window. Inside the room, his aunt and Emoya were chatting with his grandfather's special nurse, Auntie Hong. They were understanding the situation. Ruiwen stood quietly to the side. Yes, she was with Diwei just now. When did she come in? His uncle, Mo Haiheng, was lying on the other side of the chair. He had already fallen asleep with his eyes closed. As for his grandfather, who had given birth early today, he was on the balcony of the outer room, chatting with Jim Master Xiao. Below his feet was the new building block Kingdom of God. Of course, this did not stop him from dozing off under the warm afternoon sunlight. Luo Nan looked down at the old notebook in his hand when he saw this scene. He shook his head and tucked this thing under his ribs. Then he turned around and left. He passed through the corridor and arrived at the balcony attached to this floor. The balcony was also facing the sun. His vision was a bit better from this position. He could even see his grandfather's calf nearly buried in the building blocks on the balcony of the ward. You can say that this is a hidden security hazard. I once considered giving the old gentleman a different room, but considering the problem of adaptability, I didn't bother with it. Someone spoke from behind Luo Nan. Luo Nan turned around and greeted with a smile. Brother Octopus. The person who came was none other than Zhang Yuliang, who worked in this sanatorium. Well, Luo Nan was more used to calling him Octopus. This neuropharmaceutics expert wore white clothes. His hands were in his pockets as he walked over unhurriedly. He stood side by side with Luo Nan and followed Luo Nan's gaze to look in that direction. You didn't go in just now? Not just that. I hid half a foot in the crowd at the beginning. It's a birthday celebration. Just don't mess things up. Octopus opened his mouth, but he swallowed back the words. You're also the birthday boy today. Since Mrs. Luo Shuqing and the others racked their brains to use this special day to organize a family activity, and they deliberately hid it from Luo Nan, the person involved, in order to avoid making bad associations, why should he expose them? Well, Luo Nan didn't need him to be smart. Does the old man get excited when he sees you? Basically. Is it because he can see how terrifying of a fellow you are? Octopus was obviously joking. But Luo Nan nodded. It should be like this. Huh? Luo Nan didn't answer immediately. He just asked, has Grandpa's state been the same these past few days? Yeah. He's good for a while and bad for a while. He looks up to the sky at every turn, especially on cloudy days. Luckily, Xia City has been bathed in sunlight these past few days. Luo Nen shot a glance at the sky and agreed. That's right. He's been okay. Octopus felt that these words lacked sincerity. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. Nanster, I need to ask you something in private. You're being too polite. Octopus lowered his voice. I can't not be polite. The situation is very sensitive right now. We're the ones who deal with abnormalities.
Huh.
Aren't we? At the summit conference, you strongly advocated to separate abnormalities from the X factor that triggers extraordinary powers. This is drawing a line. Octopus had already taken his hands out of his pockets. He spread them out in the shape of a scale. Should we deal with the abnormalities first, or should we explore the planes first? The internet is going to be in an uproar right now. But you don't need to worry. Our medical world will definitely stand on your side.
I even have to thank you.
Luo Nen rolled his eyes. At the same time, he understood what Octopus wanted to ask. You want to talk about the problem of the source of radiation. To be precise, I want to talk about the influence of the current objective environment on everyone's cultivation. Is there really such a close external factor? Octopus had a face of curiosity. From what I can see, the trend line of Lord's secret contract is a false proposition. However, the trend of environmental change cannot be denied. Luo Nen paused and changed the topic. I went to see old you yesterday. His body is getting worse and worse. My grandpa is actually the same. I'm thinking that they actually have something in common. Octopus blinked. Old you is a psychic. There's no need to talk about his mental sensing ability. And I feel that my grandpa's perception is also very sharp. Or perhaps I should say that he has specialization on a certain special level. He can receive information outside the perception dimension of ordinary people. That's what I'm thinking right now. Luo Nan's train of thought was expanded from the special sensing machinery of the magnetic photon mica jellyfish. Every day, he would be scoured by an enormous amount of information that exceeded his ability to comprehend. He was deeply aware of the suffering involved. Luo Nan's words were not hard to understand purely in terms of verbal logic. Octopus made even more connections from this. So, the old man's physical state, including old you's current state, is indeed related to the source of radiation? We can't exclude this aspect of the factor. Of course, there's also the problem of insufficient analysis, overload, and downtime. Luo Nan casually flipped through the old notebook next to him. He looked at the chaotic lines that had been destroyed and filled in. This was a special item that had stirred up a storm not too long ago. Many people believed that it possessed an astonishing secret and corresponding value. Luo Nan didn't want to correct anything because he hadn't completely deciphered the information within. But he was certain that he was more qualified than anyone else on Earth to make a judgment. His grandpa certainly didn't possess extraordinary strength. After his mental symptoms appeared, his body was much weaker than a normal person's. It was very likely that such a weak body could bear an extremely dense and extremely fatal amount of information. Luo Nan, who had rich experience with overload, could completely imagine the consequences. The current Luo Yuandao of the past certainly didn't possess the ultra-spider web that Luo Nan used to filter information. What's more, the pressure of quantity wasn't the ultimate problem. The most fatal problem lay in the layers and the structure. He was able to detect these traces from the records in the notebook. It was like a storage device with limited space. A large amount of highly compressed files had been copied inside. The device was already stuffed to the brim and needed to be decompressed. Machines could crash and restart. How could a person do the same? Chapter 1106. Luo Nan already had a definite answer in his mind as to what the source of radiation was. Behind the fragmented chaos, where even the order of space and time no longer existed, an order that ought to have existed, the source that caused this result. According to Luo Nan's current understanding, the objective of manifestation was certainly Sunwheel Prison. Luo Nan had confirmed his objective, but there was still a crucial detail that troubled him. How did Sunwheel Prison form a linked relationship with his grandfather before the current cycle approached? According to the data left behind by his father, The observation data of the mist labyrinth began in the year 75 and ended in the year 90. With his grandfather's mental state and the reality of his father walking alone, the old man certainly did not participate in the next 10 years. Then came the problem. Whether it was Luo Yuandao or Luo Zhongheng, they were far from being able to reach the core area of Sunwell Prison. They were separated by the boundless mist labyrinth. How were they able to draw in such an enormous flood of chaotic data? It seemed like there was no special projection like the Wraith sign at that time. Luo Nan thought of other factors such as the external neuron, but there were still some things that didn't make sense. No matter what the reason was, Luo Nan believed that the source of the terrible situation his grandfather faced was certainly the realization of a connection with Sunwell Prison that traversed the barrier of space and time. Luo Nan's past experiences were right there. How is it possible for an old man who did not possess any extraordinary power to withstand the impact of the terrifying flood of data? There was also, did the two still maintain a connection? Was his grandfather still suffering from the impact and corrosion? Going a step further, there was the continuous aurora light, the daytime nightmare, and even the magnetic mica jellyfish. What sort of effects would these unexpected factors have on his grandfather? What sort of damage would he receive? Luo Nan had tried to avoid thinking deeply about this problem, but how could he avoid it? Every time Luo Nan's thoughts reached this level, he would imitate the Sunwell Prison in the space of his consciousness. The structure of checks and balances formed by the chains and the Wraith sign would hum and tremble within the chaotic dark cloud of information. And deep within the dark cloud, the hall constructed out of thin air would respond without a sound. Luo Nan was just trying to find a rule of order that could be explained and analyzed from the structure of the Sunwell Prison. It would be best if it could be used by his grandfather to relieve his pressure. That was all. But this was not an easy task. Luo Nan's expression gradually turned gloomy. Octopus felt that there was no way to continue this topic. Coincidentally, a few messages flashed through his friend group. Just by looking at the flashy links, he knew that Bamboo Pole, the rumor maker, had started working again. This guy forwarded at least 30 pieces of trending news and gossip every day. Apart from more than half of them being eye candy and mental food, the other half basically included key local, regional, and even global information. As the saying goes, a homebody who doesn't step out of the crowd knows the affairs of the world. Octopus used this as an excuse to forcefully change the topic. Right now, the radiation source is still a hidden concern. Once Keha City and Xiqing City statements came out, the problem of radiation mutation immediately exploded. Look at the statistics that Bamboo Pole posted in the group chat. In 88 cities, there have been a total of 192 demonstrations of more than 10,000 people in the past 24 hours. Moreover, it's an equal distribution of rain and dew. No one can escape. There are those who support and those who protest. It's quite messy. Luo Nan casually flipped through a few pages of the notebook. He twisted his wrist and sucked the notebook into the void like magic. Then he turned around and leaned against the railing. He sighed. Sparks are flying over here as well. Look at what Bamboo Pole is doing. The internet is boiling over. Luckily, the East Asian cultural circle is relatively conservative. The focus isn't on some group evolution. They're mainly bringing up old scores. This is quite sensitive. There was a large-scale strike in the trade zone of Tianban City a few days ago. Luo Nan's information channels far surpassed Octopus's. It's probably the aftermath of the Vagrant Act.
Yes.
Especially the so-called humanitarian aid agreement for the mutated infected. The two policies of restricted household registration and voluntary living have caused many tragedies of family separation. There are also many vagrant tribes that have lost their homes and relocated. The pressure is mainly on the welfare organizations and the SCA. Uncle has been working overtime for nearly a week for this. It wasn't easy for him to use his grandfather's birthday as an excuse. In the end, he still hasn't woken up yet. This topic was a bit too complicated and in-depth. Octopus shook his head. It's precisely because this matter is sharp. It's not that sensitive compared to group evolution. Many people are willing to join in the buzz and express their public stance. Right now, the public opinion on the internet is basically one-sided. Actually, I also support an investigation. But it seems to be a contradiction when it comes to the issue of isolation of mutated people. It's clearly an anti-isolation stance. I'm afraid things will get lively in the future. Octopus's brows furrowed as he spoke. That foundation of yours hasn't officially started operating yet. You must be careful and keep a low profile. Right now, many people are eager for you to take the lead and attract firepower for them. Luo Nan curled his lips. He nodded without saying a word. Octopus didn't know if Luo Nan was listening or not. He was just chatting, so the topic jumped a bit. Speaking of which, Bamboo Pole is working for you?
Yeah.
Brother Bamboo Pole's data analysis ability is exactly what I need. It's even rarer that he knows everything about the inner world. He has his own information channel. If I don't grab hold of him, I'll lose out. Hey, can't you take care of the minds of the people at the bottom of society? Brother Octopus, you can come if you want. The Foundation's design is to conduct investigations and research at the same time. Research on the nervous system is also a very important field. Forget it. I know my own limits. Bamboo Pole's professional skills are ranked in the top 10 of the inner world. It's hard for me to rank in the top 1,000. I'd be too old to be a graduate student. It's better to watch over this stall. Of course, if there are any new developments, please do share them in a timely manner. Luo Nan didn't try to persuade Octopus any further. In fact, he really hoped that he had a trustworthy and knowledgeable friend like Octopus to watch over this place. And Octopus most likely understood this point. Luo Nan thought for a bit and said, "Actually, I've been pondering over a paper these past few days. I'm preparing to publish it publicly. Let's ponder it together later."
Huh.
The current topic is formatting theory, mapping example, and expanded research on the human body giant system. Isn't it a bit unprofessional? Octopus went, twice, but before he could respond, a call came in from Luo Nan's side. It was his aunt, Mrs. Luo Shuqing. Luo Nan heard a few words and immediately displayed his lovable appearance. Are we going back? Okay, we're almost there.
Whose car?
No one's cars are going back. If that's the case, then of course I'm going home. I'm going with you, Auntie. Octopus's eyelids twitched as he watched from the side. All right, this was a young man.
He was solid.
But the topic they were discussing just now and the various legends from not too long ago, what were they all about? For a time, Octopus had an intense feeling of absurdity and dislocation in his heart. He was practically replacing Luo Nan with a split personality. Luo Nan had already hung up the phone while he was distracted. He turned around and ridiculed Octopus. Emoya wants to take Rue to the recording studio. She says that they might work through the night. Auntie actually agreed. But I remember last year when Emoya participated in the music festival, our house practically exploded on the spot. Is there such a big difference between one person playing music and two people playing music? Perhaps Andy just has a problem with underground music? Hehe. Luo Nan didn't say anything more. Even though he had basically entered the level where he didn't need a means of transportation, he still needed to follow the group in order to preserve his image as a tottering, obedient child in front of his family. He waved his hand and walked towards the exit of the platform. Brother Octopus, let's talk in detail later. Actually, I've pretty much drafted the outline. I'll send it to the group in 2 days. Oh, okay. I won't go over. I don't want Andy to say those courteous words again. Luo Nan didn't turn his head. He made an okay gesture and ran with small steps. He soon crossed the platform and disappeared behind the door. He was like a graceful and energetic youth. That was how he should be. Just from the perspective of personal interactions, this wasn't too bad. At the very least, the current Luo Nan was no longer the somewhat gloomy youth they first met. Just from this point alone, Luo Nan was already quite good. Octopus didn't have much use for Octopus in a place like the sanatorium, and he was a relatively high-end professional. Most of his time was spent on scientific research. Octopus received a bit of stimulation from their conversation just now, so he went back and soaked himself in his own laboratory. He entered a state of mind and lost track of time. This lasted until the Hexa ear vibrated. Someone in his friend group had him. It was Xie Junping. Octopus, bro. I'm holding a temporary board meeting. I've entrusted Brother Papercut to help me pick someone up. Brother Papercut's car was just sent for maintenance. He might be a bit late. Erping got it. Diwei usually lived in Lon Town's welfare home. During the weekends, he would go to the sanatorium to do his homework. At the same time, he would receive the influence of Jim Master Xiao and Dean Wan. He Yuanji was sent over by his mother, and he received the same treatment. Perhaps Luo Nan considered him a hostage, but Luo Nan treated him equally and nurtured him as a disciple. There were plenty of benefits, but the transportation wasn't too convenient. Normally, worker Zhai would come over to pick someone up. If worker Zhai was working overtime and couldn't get away, then it would be Xie Junping, a loyal believer of the Order of Creators, who would come out. Papercut was a mobile member, a spare tire of spare tires. With Xie Junping's current resources, arranging a driver to pick someone up wasn't a big deal. However, everyone knew that these were extraordinary times. Even though they were at Xia City's headquarters, the people by Luo Nan's side needed to maintain a minimum level of safety awareness. They needed to communicate and help each other. They didn't want to give the schemers in the shadows any opportunities. At this time, Papercut jumped out. Octopus, Erping, I won't be late. We've already entered the main entrance. I hitched a ride with Bamboo Pole. Octopus was baffled. You two are together. Bamboo Pole, don't bring bad news to an honest man. Bamboo Pole. Hee. While they were chatting, Octopus raised his head and looked out of the window. He found that it was already almost 6 o'clock. The weekend was also the peak hour. It would take at least 1.5 hours to get back to Forest Wall District. So he sent another message. Paper Cutter Bamboo Pole, you guys can eat here. This is the staff cafeteria. Eat to your heart's content. It's my treat. If it weren't for the fear that the children would be hungry, do you think I would be willing to entertain you? Forget it. The children in the orphanage go to bed at 9 o'clock. If I stay here for too long, I will inevitably disturb my schedule when I go back. Dean Wan is easy to talk to, but Nanny Wang is not easy to dismiss. After a few minutes, the other side sent another message. I've got him. Octopus watched the surveillance video that was specially connected to the Hexa. Sure enough, Bamboo Pole was leading the two children. He made AV sign to the camera on the ceiling. Papercut chuckled to the side. Farther away, Xiu, who had become increasingly thin in recent times, held his hands behind his back as he watched this. Although there was no smile on his face, he was still relaxed. Octopus rolled his eyes. All right, I won't be sending you off. Chapter 1107. Bamboo Pole's commoner car didn't stand out at all in the endless stream of traffic in Xia City. He encountered a weekend traffic jam as expected. He followed the AI's guidance and changed 4 or 5 layers of traffic, but it was still difficult for him to move forward. He was only a dozen kilometers away from the Forest Wall District. As always, in a sense, this is a good, Bamboo Pole chatted and yawned in passing. Where did you go last night? Papercut looked askance at him. I worked hard for Boss Luo.
Huh.
The Foundation hasn't started operating yet, right? You don't really think that Boss Luo needs to rely on the Foundation to walk, do you? Bamboo Pole looked askance back at him. Papercut blinked and immediately made a zipping motion with his mouth. The front row was a bit quiet, but the laughter of the children in the back row was particularly clear. The two little beans were securely tied to their children's seats. They had just been removed from Papercut's car before they came, but it didn't affect their play at all. 7 or 8 lively little papermen had their own special characteristics. They were extraordinarily quick-witted. Plus, they could receive simple commands and obey the director. They were enough to act in an animated film. It could be said that among the ability users of Xia City, Papercut was number 2 when it came to playing with children. No one dared to take first place. In the field of toys, aside from the papermen structure being too simple and the basic requirements for issuing commands being high, the technique of activating soul force had no other weaknesses. It was also because of the basic requirements that one could easily see the difference in soul force between the two children in the back row from the paper men's reception of commands and the degree to which they could digest them. There were millions of children in the world. Diwewu was certainly the type that had talent for cultivation. After half a year of edification from Dean Wan and Jim Mastershio, Diwewu couldn't be said to have awakened. However, his thoughts were direct, and he could form an effective information connection with the activated papermen. He could control this low-end game with ease. What was most valuable was that when this child was in an excited state of play, his thoughts were very concise and just right. This was a very good habit. In comparison, many awakened, who were often hot-blooded and blindly tossed and turned, had to go to the corner to wake up. In comparison, Hyunji did not have much of a foundation to speak of, but his reaction was extremely fast. After realizing that the instructions were too complicated and useless, he immediately focused on the control of a single paper doll. He concentrated and was not disturbed by the other paper dolls. He was definitely outstanding among his peers, and people could not help but praise Lady Hyunji for teaching her son well. Kids nowadays seem to have a bright future ahead of them. Children could be praised face to face, but they couldn't be praised like this. It just so happened that Papercut had nothing better to do, so he took a video of the two kids in the back row. He sent it to the group and used it as a conversation topic. It seems like they have the innate talent of ability users. Over here, the barrier between the mental and the material doesn't seem to be very solid. Birds of a feather flock together. Bamboo Pole drove without batting an eyelid. He also quietly flattered everyone, including himself, for once. Papercut didn't appreciate it. He gave Papercut a push in reality. Concentrate on driving. Many people in the group flattered Xie Junping. It was clear that he had been absent-minded during the board meeting. He was still emotional. Then what's the deal with me sitting in the middle of a bunch of stupid birds that are about to choke to death? The market value of sky crystal biology has skyrocketed these past few days. What's there to be dissatisfied about as a marketing director? Bamboo Pole turned a deaf ear to Papercut's warning. For a psychic architect, chatting online while driving wasn't even a distraction. Thank you, marketing director of a research and development subsidiary. It's all the same. Speaking of which, Director Xie is progressing at lightning speed. Last night, with the collective cooperation of the Ring of Blood and Will, he persisted until the latter half of the journey. He almost killed his way into the first echelon, crazily earning money while cultivating at the same time, not neglecting either. Amazing. Forget it. In this sort of irrational market, you earn money until you have atrial fibrillation. Any random Tom, Dick, or Harry can say that XX medicine can prevent abnormalities, and the market will immediately be cleared out. Not even dregs will be left. If you say that it can cause. Don't even think about selling 1 gram or 2. Who Laoson's ranch hasn't seen blood for almost a week. He might be a living bodhisattva and set them all free. Can you send me 2 heads? Shuele popped his head out. My house hasn't seen any meat or fish for half a month. My mom is adamant that all meat, eggs, and milk products can be contaminated. My dad is guarding the police canteen right now and won't go home. Go straight to him. 2 heads is too stingy. If you can eat 20,000 heads, he'll kneel down on the spot and call you daddy. Xie Junping responded in a bad mood. He had a belly full of complaints that he wanted to spit out. At this time, even if you make a fortune quietly, you should be careful that your son doesn't have anus. These idiots actually want me to increase my marketing efforts. I highly suspect that they want to take advantage of this opportunity to make a fortune and then cash out and leave. The medicine and whatnot is fine. What really made the market value of sky crystal biology skyrocket is probably the plantation building. Didn't your dad invest in building a batch in the 90s? It was only built the year before last, right? Back then, there were people who ridiculed him for taking such a big step and pulling his balls. But right now, the Sky Crystal Plantation has already taken up over 20% of Xia City's food supply. In the future, it might even increase by over 10%. And right now, Xia City's dietary structure is changing in a panic. The ratio of meat, eggs, and milk has plummeted, and food has become the majority. There is no currency that is harder than this right now. Of course, this is just a temporary change in a special period of time and a special environment. A windfall smashed in the face, and it's gone just like that. Only an idiot wouldn't cash out. It could be said that the world was seriously fragmented. The news of Ha City and Shi City's mutant infection going out of control had a completely different effect on every major city in the world. The conservative cultural circles of East Asia were basically fearful of it like a tiger. But the New World, Old Europe, and other places had already set off wave after wave of revelry. The resulting social problems were also completely different. Bamboo Pole also poured out relevant information links to the group aside from his speech. He started with financial news from 7 or 8 years ago, all the way to recent market analysis. He clearly explained the cause and effect of the situation. It also made Xie Junping, who was in the middle of the situation, dumbstruck. So it turns out that my old man is this awesome. He already foresaw today's situation? Yeah. I really want to praise him, but truthfully speaking, Big Boss Xie probably made this decision back then when he saw the birth of the Deep Blue platform. It was accompanied by the progenitor energy source and the increasingly matured miniature fusion reactor technology. He used this project to wantonly hoard related minerals and make technological reserves. Bamboo Pole began to send out relevant information, whether it is the progenitor energy source box of the Deep Blue platform or the ambient temperature superconducting specter, or necessary for the miniature fusion reactor. They are all unique products of the Deep Blue world. They are standard strategic resources. It was only in the early 90s that the Deep Blue platform released them for a short period of time, allowing everyone to taste a bit of sweetness. Then Big Boss Xie caught them. From this point of view, it wouldn't be wrong to say that he had foresight. Papercut clicked his tongue twice in the car. If that's the case, then no matter what, Erping's family is going to make a huge profit this time. Bamboo Pole nodded and then shook his head. It's not that simple. It's true that the Sky Crystal Corporation was able to smoothly develop strategic resource reserves by starting with a basic public welfare project like the cultivation building. The angle was excellent, but it was inevitable that they would have the support of the military and government. The entanglement of interests is very complicated. Out of consideration for the child behind them, Bamboo Pole and Papercut didn't say too much. At this time, Bamboo Pole's family car finally found a relatively unobstructed route. It began to move from the midair traffic layer between the high-rise buildings to the bottom of the recycling layer. The closer they got to the recycling layer, the narrower the road became. The flow of traffic also became fewer and fewer. A considerable portion of the traffic was made up of crude public transportation vehicles. The lights on both sides of the road seemed to have dimmed. Instead, the powerful headlights of modified motorcycles would flash across the road from time to time, roaring to and fro. It reflected a different style of the city. In his friend group, Xie Junping was no longer in the mood for the board of directors. He began to chat with Shuele. Soon, the focus was on cultivation, and the discussion was in full swing. Bamboo Pole and Papercut would occasionally chime in with a few words, but they weren't idle. The car had already entered the Forest Wall district. It followed the old-fashioned road that led outside the city, moving forward at a pace that was neither too fast nor too slow. Bamboo Pole suddenly discovered a problem. The number of people talking in the group has decreased these past 2 days, right? Cragburst and Cat Eyes were hired by the military to clear out mutant lairs. What about Inging, that chatterbox? Studying, of course. Papercut replied as he left a message in the group. Not only did she want to compare notes with me, she also sends study notes to Nanster every day. I didn't see her so active when she was with Her Majesty Empress Wu. Oh, that's right. She's learning super configurations. To be precise, it's configurations and super configurations. That's right. The knowledge involved is much more interesting than her straightforward white rainbow. Not to mention, she has her adopted son in the middle. Bamboo Pole laughed at these words that were full of personal bias. After driving on the old-fashioned road for a dozen or so minutes, the Orchid Town Welfare Institute came into view.
The car's AI spoke at this time.
The road ahead is congested. Bamboo Pole furrowed his brows and suddenly stepped on the brakes. He turned off the headlights of the car and stopped at the side of the road. What's going on? Oh, it's a parade. Papercut also saw the abnormal situation ahead. Large amounts of car lights, colorful lights, and smoke interweaved and radiated chaotic rays of light. It painted the gloomy area with a disorderly color. Through the car window, a clamor of noise could be heard. They could hear the roar of old-fashioned engines from far away.
Aha.
Looking at this direction, it's the convoy from Trigate District. I see Grandpa Sher's big pickup truck. Diweiwu's eyes were very sharp in the back. He immediately identified the most conspicuous element of the parade ahead. He did his best to poke his head out from the child's seat. He wanted to undo the safety lock, but he was scolded by Papercut. Be obedient and stay here. As they spoke, the low-speed convoy slowly pressed forward. Bamboo Pole pressed down on the car window. The seemingly orderly chants, each louder than the last, pushed through the air and faced them head-on. We want an investigation. We want a name list. Release the source of the information. Break the SCA. Bamboo Pole looked out the window and watched the parade. He used the hexa ear to secretly record and synchronize the video to the group chat. The vagrant residential area of Trigate District is moving. The organization is simple and crude. The chants aren't unified and powerful enough. There's a high chance that it's spontaneous. Should we rejoice? Papercut grunted and suddenly slapped his thigh. Oh, this is directed at the SCA and social welfare organizations. The Welfare Institute is in front. Chapter 1108. So, you're saying that it was a false alarm in the end? Luo Nen bent his fingers and elbows. His suspended body slowly sank down, but his tone was as calm as usual. Bamboo Pole's voice came through the hexa ear. Weiwu is in the orphanage. He hasn't cut off contact with the camp. Dean has a good reputation there. Of course, the protest team is restrained for now. Isn't that good? It's still troublesome for you. Bamboo Pole introduced the current situation. The protest team has already set up camp in the municipal plaza. The government is doing a bit better right now, but the citizens who are highly sensitive to the mutation infection are going crazy. Sporadic conflicts are occurring, and they will only get worse in the future. The central city is still over a dozen kilometers away from here. The problem is that the chaos caused by the mutation prevention and control policy can all be linked to you. That's right. You're just that shameless. And it happened in Xia City, in your base camp. You'll be very passive in terms of public opinion and evaluation. Okay, that's right. The global census was an extremely sensitive operation. It was mixed with complicated interests, positions, and practical contradictions. Many people were unwilling to accept Luo Nan's plan. They didn't oppose him face-to-face because they were afraid of Luo Nan's extraordinary strength. They didn't want to run head-on into him. But if there was a chance to delay and obstruct him, they wouldn't be lenient. Luo Nan had considered this problem long ago, but it wasn't something he could control. It wasn't something he should focus on with his limited energy. He just needed to understand it. In comparison, it was better to consider some more important fields that he was better at. Luo Nan returned from his one-finger handstand. He didn't even sweat a few drops. In fact, he wasn't training. He was just observing the state of his body. He only found out about this matter the next morning. It was because he was pondering over the interaction between his body and the magnetic photon mica. He was studying and familiarizing himself with this special perspective that exceeded human imagination. Bamboo Pole didn't say too much to Luo Nan now that he knew about Luo Nan's attitude. The newly formed team of the Foundation had already formed a consensus. Luo Nan was in charge of extraordinary work in this team. Everyone else only dealt with regular problems. It was enough to just give Luo Nan a reminder about the relevant matters. Bamboo Pole cut off the voice communication. Luo Nan scrubbed through the group chat records from last night as he scrubbed. He understood the details of the matter a step further. Bamboo Pole's introduction was very comprehensive. There wasn't much to say about the situation back then. Instead, it was the various social media channels that made things a bit more lively. Many people in the media, social activists, and public figures had already caught a glimpse of the opportunities within. They began to sing one after the other. Luo Nan hastily flipped through a few articles. He could see that Bamboo Pole, this crazy forwarding demon, had lost interest in similar information. From the wee hours of the morning until breakfast time, the main stream of information had already changed to nutrition products. Luo Nan casually clicked open a dozen or so videos. Yes, they were indeed very pleasing to the eye. Let's just treat it as a massage for his brain that had been consuming a lot lately. Luo doing he needed.
Luo.
Luo he needed to. Luo needed.
He needed. Luo. Inaz.
Luo Nan as long as he said. He said, bamboo that the said. Luo Nan. Luo clan song. He said he sang as the saying he as he's saying. As he. This was the value of a data specialist. However, it was often at this time that Luo Nan couldn't help but criticize his own subtle attitude and actions. How depraved. Luo Nan, who was already seated at the dining table, let out a sigh. Breakfast isn't good? Madame Luo Shuqing, who had just urged the AI butler to complete the breakfast task, was at a sensitive moment. It's okay. Luo Nan said truthfully, the downloaded module is worth the money. Mo Peng immediately looked at him with admiration. This morning, there were only 3 of them at the dining table. Professor Mo Haihang, who was usually in charge of the kitchen, had gone straight to work after yesterday's birthday party because he was working overtime. Moya and Rue Wen kept their word and stayed in the recording studio for the whole night. With half of the people gone, the atmosphere around the table was indeed a little quieter, but that was as far as it went. Don't talk so much if you don't have anything to say. Take care of your voice.
All right.
Luo Nan subconsciously dug at the slightly protruding Adam's apple on his neck. Speaking of which, his voice had been growing hoarser and hoarser these past few days. He had clearly entered the stage of voice change. Luo Nan's uncle and aunt let out visible sighs of relief following this change. Though they didn't say anything in the past 2 years, they still cared a bit about Luo Nan's puberty, which was clearly lagging behind his peers. As a result, Luo Nan returned to his normal family life in late May. Small details like his voice change, his beard, and so on became increasingly clear. It might be related to his delayed puberty, though the reverse stimulation of the magneto-optical mica and even the grooming and adjustment of the perfect body might have played a larger role. Yep, it was puberty. His instincts. A bit of depravity was definitely due to the need to conform to the instincts of living beings that evolved over millions and millions of years. While Luo Nan's mind was spinning with all sorts of messy thoughts, his aunt picked up another call. It should be from Moya. Luo Nan didn't mind. He just subconsciously opened the new link that Bamboo Pole sent. Only this time, it wasn't those snow-white colors and soft and smooth curves. Instead, it was replaced with a set of relatively abstract characters and symbols. It looked like it was a random drawing of the mood. Equals or is not equal to. Is it really that hard to get the answer? The accompanying picture was that of a city plaza that was brilliantly lit. Luo Nan's mind spent approximately 3 seconds before he was able to switch channels. But he became confused because of the meaning behind this rather obscure description. The source of the message came from an extremely popular image-sharing social media. Luo Nan subconsciously looked towards the upper left corner of the image. It was a rather familiar avatar. It was so familiar that it made him even more confused. And at this time, Octopus popped up in the group chat. This is Shueyuan, right? The big sister captain of BHD? That's right. She's the captain. You can call her housekeeper. What the hell is big sister captain? Bamboo Pole, who forwarded the message, immediately retorted. It had to be said that Luo Nan was the only one who intersected with the BHD circle in Xia City. Cat eyes could be counted as well, but this sister was very clear about the distinction between the mortal world and the inner world. Luo Nan and Dal Baiyu were closer in age within the BHD trio. Baiyu was the one who got familiar with people. Everyone would occasionally chat online, so she was the closest of the three. Next was Clara. Luo Nan had encountered and solved two of her troubles in a row. It was hard not to have any impression of her. Comparatively speaking, Luo Nan and Shui Yuan were the least familiar. However, last time at Aurora Cloud City, the BHD trio had performed at the New Year's Eve event. Bamboo Pole saw it. He liked Shui Yuan the most, so he specifically followed her social media account. Shui Yuan was a fitness expert. She often shared fitness photos and videos on her social media account. Therefore, every time Bamboo Pole forwarded a link to his friend's circle, there would often be Shui Yuan's work. It was quite pleasing to the eye. Luo Nan was certain, but this time it was clearly different. Is she alluding to the aberration infection? Qin Yikuan, who had intersected with the BHD trio in the past, came out of his lurking state. She should be talking about the missing migration. Octopus analyzed. The picture of the municipal plaza speaks volumes. Even if she wasn't, the public believed that she was at such a sensitive time. Sporadic curses could already be seen in the comment section. This was because Shui Yuan herself was a little transparent among the artists. Even though the team had improved over the past half year, they had only risen from a group that could be cut off at any time to a marginalized group that needed to crazily rush shows in order to barely support their operating expenses. But no matter what was said, a public figure was a public figure. It didn't matter what standpoint one stood in the entertainment circle. Getting involved in this matter was truly a high risk. There was no need to do so. Luo Nan furrowed his brows. He saw that the discussion in the group was more or less the same as what he was thinking, so he didn't post any more opinions. The company that Moya worked at might have some idiots, but they still had basic qualities. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before the company deleted Shui Yuan's post. Of course, it would be better if Luo Nan deleted it himself. As a friend, Luo Nan sent a message to Baiyu, asking her to remind her captain. After sending the message, Baiyu instantly replied with a dumbstruck emoji. Then she didn't say anything else. She probably went to remind Captain to deal with the matter over there. In the end, this was just a small matter. Luo Nan didn't pay too much attention to it. He continued to eat his meal in silence. At the same time, he split off a strand of his mind to continue to verify the various details of the external nutrients in his body's digestive and circulatory systems. He was searching for the basis for his detailed thesis. Luo Nan. Mrs. Luo Shuqing spoke once more from the seat of honor. Luo Nan immediately raised his head. Generally speaking, when his aunt called him by his full name, it meant that she was either in a bad mood or there really was something going on. His aunt had just received a round of phone calls. Her brows were still furrowed. You've been home these past few days. Won't you be delaying proper business? Mrs. Luo Shuqing's tone was quite calm. Proper business? The foundation you're talking about. It won't be delaying. Due to the recent rise in social authority of his entire family, the fact that Luo Nan was no longer a normal student, a normal person, could no longer be hidden from these close relatives of his small family. Luckily, Luo Nan's aunt's family had already passed the period of reaction to his current identity during these few days of seclusion. At least on the surface. Extraordinary ability user, gifted sensing master, specially hired expert of the Star Alliance Committee, member of the SCA's high authority group. These titles were all information that educated people of the present generation could understand. It was fine as long as they were equivalent to experts who enjoyed high-level allowances. As for the youngest extraordinary, the one-way tour guide who warped space and time, the card master who is a soul hunter, the human-shaped killing machine with global positioning. There was no need to waste time explaining these things that even the members of the inner world couldn't accept. At the same time, Luo Nan felt that it was very necessary to give his family some relatively normal information. The Luo Nan and his friends' foundation was among the normal ones. It was enough as long as his family had a bit of vigilance. They wouldn't be easily taken advantage of and bullied by the enemy. The true security system still needed the Xia City branch. Most importantly, Luo Nan himself had to seriously arrange it. As for the government's security measures of authority, it was nothing more than a formality. With these considerations in mind, Luo Nan was happy to use his duck-like voice to say a few more words. The foundation is still in the preparatory stage. We just held a thank you ceremony yesterday. The funds aren't a problem, but the personnel aren't in place yet. This was the speech Luo Nan had prepared for the outside world. It was just as effective when he used it on his family. It wasn't that he was intentionally hiding it. It was just that knowing this was enough for 99% of the people in this world. As expected, Mrs. Luo Shuqing didn't ask any further. She said, "Then are you still going to Gear's laboratory today?" If there's nothing else, I'll still make a trip there. The facilities there are more complete. Although the most cutting-edge research that Luo Nan was currently undertaking couldn't be coordinated with and assisted by the facilities in Gear's underground laboratory on the North Bank, there were still some experiments that could be arranged there. And it was a bit more convenient than home. Having said this, Luo Nan cautiously asked, "Is there something you need?" Mrs. Luo Shuqing nodded. Emoya just called. Their recording isn't going too smoothly. They might not be able to finish in the morning, so they need to ask Rui when for leave. I just gave the school a call. Huh. Mo Peng, who was engrossed in eating his congee, suddenly raised his head. Ask for leave. You approve? Mrs. Luo Shuqing raised her wrist to look at her watch. She said unhappily, "Eat your food. You're already up late. If you keep dawdling, you don't want to go to school, right?" Mo Peng had a face full of grief and indignation. He turned his head to look at Luo Nan, hoping to obtain a bit of sympathy. A bit of consolation would be fine, but Luo Nan acted as if he didn't see it. Luckily, as an elder, Luo Nan felt that the atmosphere was a bit delicate when these words were spoken. He swallowed his reprimand and was silent for 2 seconds before speaking. Acumen College has been affected by the aberration infection. They're currently combing through their files. They're probably preparing for a rainy day. They're doing research on the children of vagrant families and the like. Luo Nan was startled. Rui Wen isn't a vagrant. I know, but the procedures for her show that she is. So she needs to go through a few additional procedures and do an additional registration. That's discrimination. Luo Nan hadn't done anything yet when Mo Peng slammed the table. But soon, he buried his face into his rice bowl under his mother's stern gaze. Luo Nan also furrowed his brows. It appeared that this was another form of census. The household registration system was strict, and the thinking was relatively conservative in the region of Xia City. Doing these things conformed with the government's consistent logic. In fact, it was beneficial for the vast majority of people. But looking at it from another angle, there were many explanations. Whether it's discrimination or not, let's discuss the matter as it is before there are clear signs of it. Don't mess around. I looked at the registration form they sent over. The requirements for the procedures are quite strict, especially the procedures after returning to the city. They're quite strict. Mrs. Luo Shuqing sent Luo Nan a link to fill out the form. I've handled all of Rui Wen's procedures, but now that I think about it, there are a lot of things that were done through your relationship. There are some twists and turns here that other people can't handle. Since you won't be going far away for a few days, you should take care of these things. Hick. Okay. Luo Nan's feelings were a bit subtle. He had never been a young master who didn't do any chores. But his aunt had never used this sort of tone to arrange a task for him before. She had never arranged a task of this nature. Plus, she didn't arrange complicated tasks and tests like she did in the past. She was worried that the child would run into a wall outside. She didn't take the trouble to teach him the details step by step. The current situation seemed to confirm that Luo Nan must, or at least must, possess the ability to handle this task. Yes, it was just like the legendary workplace, the arrangement a boss made for his employees. Luo Nan suddenly discovered that in Mrs. Luo Shuqing's heart, this nephew of hers clearly had a change in status in the family. Especially when compared to the person next to him. What are you dilly-dallying for? Do you want me to ask for a leave of absence for your teacher? Mo Peng stomped his feet and walked away. Luo Nan would normally just bury his head in eating at this time. This was basically the case in the past. But today, his aunt still had a belly full of words to say, and it was still related to Rui Wen. This school year is about to end. You've already taken a leave of absence, so I won't say much. But I need to say a few words to Rui-wen. Luo Nan raised his head. What's up with Rui-wen? The final exams are only a few days away. I checked Rui-wen's class results. It's terrible. She practically scored full marks on the final exams, but she would be persuaded to repeat a year.
Ha!
On one hand, there's a problem with her studies. On the other hand, she's been skipping class far too often, especially in the past month or so. Luo Nan subconsciously avoided his aunt's gaze. Only he, her older brother, knew the best why Rui-wen was skipping class. The young girl spent the vast majority of her time wandering within the misty maze, searching for suitable planar processing materials for Luo Nan. Only Rui-wen's special ability allowed her to come and go freely within the boundless maze. In comparison, Luo Nan's detection activities in the tree-hole space could only be considered as statistics on a macroscopic level. If he wanted to do it in detail on one hand, he would consume too much computing power. On the other hand, he would be too close to the danger zone of the Sunwheel Extreme Prison. It would be very easy for him to create another incident like the Daydream Nightmare. It was impossible for him to explain such a thing to his aunt, so he could only pretend to be an ostrich. Fortunately, Madame Luo Shuqing was also mentally prepared for her nephew's half-hearted approach, so she did not probe further. She only said, I know that you have your own circle, and what you do are those so-called big things that are beyond common sense. I can't interfere in this aspect. No matter what, society is a big classroom. You'll more or less make some progress if you've been in it for a long time. You've made a lot of progress, I admit. The question is, where is Rui-wen? Chapter 1109. What should he do about Rui-wen? Luo Nan flipped through Rui-wen's transcripts, the teacher evaluations, and a series of materials that included psychological research and judgment. The teaching work of Acumen College was quite excellent. The relevant materials and evaluations were quite solid and reliable. And the more reliable they were, the clearer the problems highlighted above became. Taciturn, unsociable, erratic, often absent-minded, excessively cold and heartless. In the eyes of these teachers, Rui-wen was undoubtedly a problematic young girl. She was a poor student who would find it hard to complete her studies normally. The only good thing about her was that she wouldn't cause trouble for others. But this way, the problems on the psychological level would become more and more serious. Oh, the problems definitely exist. But they might not be to the extent described above. Luo Nan thought for a bit, and then he gave his aunt some peace of mind. Rui-wen is still a bit alienated from the school environment. The teachers are only looking at her appearance. They don't know Rui-wen's actual situation. But we have a plan in our hearts. Mrs. Luo Shuqing shot him a glance. You have a plan? Of course. You see, Rui-wen is a very special person. Even if you include all of her experiences in the underground fighting arena, it would still only be a trifling 3 years of time. A normally developing child, at the age of 3, wouldn't even be able to speak clearly. Rui-wen's current reserved and silent appearance is already quite amazing. Of course, this should have a lot to do with her missing memories. Luo Nan had seriously considered Rui-wen's situation before. He was relatively optimistic. Her current problems are largely due to her previous amnesia. Her effective memories exist for far too little time. It's so little that she doesn't even have enough time to form a complete personality. But how old is she right now? 12 or 13. Maybe even 8 or 9. There's still a lot of time in the future. As long as we give her a complete, warm family, if 1 year isn't enough, then 5 years. If 5 years isn't enough, then 10 years. Sooner or later, everything will be enriched. Mrs. Luo Shuqing stared at him. You're quite confident. Luo Nan spread his hands. In the end, Rui-wen was different from other people. Even if she scored a 0 in every subject, she would certainly become an influential figure in this world in the foreseeable future. That's right. Just based on Rui-wen's talent and strength, Luo Nan had already marked out her lower limit. As for her upper limit, Rui-wen was still unable to see it clearly. In short, she was absolutely not bad. The problem now was how to explain it to his aunt. His aunt certainly had a bit of mental preparation right now, but Luo Nen couldn't rashly say that those kids whose grades surpassed Rui were nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs in the eyes of this little girl. They wouldn't be able to catch up even if they rode a spaceship in the future. Such a statement was too stupid. Luo Nen could only adopt a delaying tactic. He chuckled and flattered. I have confidence in our family's environment. Just like me, a naturally awkward fellow. Isn't it pretty good now? I can't believe you still know. Of course I know. In Rui Wen's current situation, one is time, and the other is communication. We can only take our time. As for communication, it'll be better if we have a few friends of the same age or companions in the circle. In our circle, Rui Wen is the group's pet. Everyone loves her very much. She doesn't usually speak much at home, mainly because the age gap is too big. There's a generation gap. These kinds of words were obviously asking for a beating. Mrs. Luo Shuqing smacked Luo Nan, but she wasn't really angry. She turned her head and consoled herself. Recently, Emoya has brought her in and out of the recording studio. She seems to have gotten to know quite a few people. When I asked her when we got home, a few names popped out of her mouth. A few of them seemed to be young girls of the same age. But when I asked her to invite a few new friends over to our house as guests, she didn't follow up. Only now did Luo Nan know why his aunt was actually happy to see Rui Wen go to the recording studio. He laughed. Aunt, you can't be too hasty in your actions. Why is it like a blind date? Rui Wen needs at least a decade or two to get married. You've been training outside, but your mouth is getting more and more oily. Mrs. Luo Shuqing still wanted to give Luo Nan another slap, but she didn't do it in the end. Actually, I know that you and Rui Wen are both capable people. Capable people can eat no matter what. But in the end, the circle in which you two play around with your abilities is far too far away. Just like your father, mother, and grandfather. If they really could make a name for themselves in the wilderness, it would be fine if they didn't see anyone for a year or two, or even 8 to 10 years. But in the end, they came back in such a sorry state, and then left in such a hurry. Mrs. Luo Shuqing suddenly froze when she spoke to this point. She soon forced a laugh. There's no need to talk about these things right now. You're much stronger than your grandfather and father. At least they don't have the ability to ascend to the heavens like you do. Bah. Luo Nan didn't say anything this time, but he still got smacked in the head. He had an innocent expression on his face, but he already understood in his heart that his aunt's uneasiness originated from her lack of familiarity with the inner world. She didn't understand Luo Nan and Rui Wen's positions in the circle. Of course, if she really did understand, she would only be more worried. Luo Nan could only play dumb. He absolutely couldn't continue the conversation. Don't worry. I'll take care of Rui Wen's matter today. I looked at the process just now. At most, I just need to make a trip to the orphanage, the civil affairs department, and the school. Speaking of which, Wei Wu and that little Ji, who just came over from the orphanage, are quite close to Rui Wen. You saw it all yesterday. I feel that Rui Wen looks at the two of them, like she looks at the crow that often circles outside our window. Luo Nan was actually speechless. Luo Nan left the house early, bearing the pressure from his aunt. Okay, it was impossible for him to just run over to the administrative window to do the procedures. After all, he was a boss now. Okay, he was completely unfamiliar with the relevant procedures. Plus, he was still a minor. He wouldn't be able to do anything even if he went. Actually, he was just a second in command. Before he left the house, he had already passed the requirements for completing the procedures to Bamboo Pole. Wayne used to do this sort of thing, but she was currently in a state of closed-door training. It wasn't good to disturb her, so Bamboo Pole, the newly recruited high-ranking employee, could temporarily perform the duties of a secretary. Luo Nan didn't really want to be a hands-off shopkeeper. He just didn't want to mess around blindly. Right now, he and Bamboo Pole did a more detailed division of labor. I just asked. This procedure requires the personal signature and authentication of the person in charge of the orphanage who originally handled the adoption procedures. Boss, you're fast. Go get a copy from Dean Wan. I'm not that fast. In short, I'll be fast. I'll prepare some other things on my side. How about we meet up later? Okay, I'll get in touch later. Luo Nan arranged a time and place with Bamboo Pole, and then he strolled leisurely toward the Orchid Town's orphanage in the faraway Forest Wall district. Don't look at the one-way tour guide rumbling in the inner world right now. Luo Nan knew that he wasn't a genius like Rue Wen. A large amount of energy would inevitably be consumed in order to realize mid to long distance teleportation. It would also cause a large commotion. It wasn't that he couldn't do it. It was just that it wasn't necessary in his daily life. Especially in the domain of Xia City, where President Ouyang's psychic wave network covered the entire city. In a certain sense, this was the extension of his extraordinary domain. President Ouyang probably wouldn't mind if Luo Nan were to teleport here, but the pressure on the psychic wave network would be too great. Not to mention that he would be alarmed 3 times a day. He was afraid that the personnel on duty would become numb to it. If something really did happen later, he might have to reenact the stupid show of The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Luo Nan only had one option left if he didn't borrow the centipede, public transport, or any other traditional means of transportation at this time.
Run.
At first, Luo Nan's walking speed was about the same as a normal young man's. Once he left the community and reached the streets, his speed grew faster and faster. This speed wasn't just simply running. In fact, in the eyes of other passers-by, Luo Nan was clearly a student, yet he was strolling leisurely. He was a young man with nothing to do. At least, this was how Luo Nan appeared in their eyes. But once their attention was diverted, they would form a blind spot. They would never see this idle young man again. Luo Nan would never appear in their field of vision a second time. Luo Nan moved within the blind spot of people's attention. He borrowed the buildings, the trees on the street, and other obstacles to avoid the surveillance cameras that were practically everywhere in the modern city. He gradually accelerated until he displayed a speed that exceeded the imagination of normal people. This was the city-fast stealth technique that Red Fox had imparted to him. Right now, Luo Nan might not be able to use it as skillfully and freely as Red Fox. But through his incomparable perceptual ability, he could display a nearly prophetic judgment ability in such a complex environment. He could determine the limited number of points he needed to step on next, even though he was separated by a street block. From the edge of the building that was several hundred meters tall to the center of the street that was surging with people. Perhaps this included the fire escape passageway of some office building. Due to the limitations of the surveillance system, there were only a few dozen points that could be used in a street that was several hundred meters long. And because of the movement of the stream of people, these points were still rapidly changing. Even with Luo Nan's current ability, he needed to go all out to speed along this special private highway. From his physical strength to his calculation power, he needed to mobilize and operate them all. He couldn't afford the slightest mistake. From Luo Nan's perspective, there was no more effective method of morning training than this. He urged his body and brain to move with all his might, slowly melting away his original limits. He formed a more detailed communication with the magnetic optical mica. Through a perspective that didn't belong to humans, he observed and analyzed these changes. He researched and even experimented with more possibilities for development. Luo Nan was even able to feel the control lines of the magnetic optical mica slicing up the structure of his body and soul. There was also a certain subtle magnetization effect. This made every second different from the last. Perhaps everyone was like this in essence, but people like Luo Nan, who possessed a distinct trend of optimization, were few and far in between. With this speed, I should be able to reach the orphanage in approximately 40 minutes. But after I reach the Western District, I'll switch to the 100-knot bug. It will actually be faster. Luo Nan calmly evaluated and chose his route. Right now, he was gliding from the middle section of an office building to an unmanned platform a few dozen meters away. And at this time, Bamboo Pole made a call. Let me add another piece of information. There are some procedures that require Rue Wen to personally verify. Fortunately, she doesn't need to personally be present. But some real-time communication is still necessary. She's with Moya. I'm going to see if their recording is finished. Luo Nen landed safely. He took the opportunity to do a roll to eliminate the force of impact and reduce his speed to a normal level. He entered the building from the platform. He sat on the railing of the fire escape stairs and slid down like a slide. During this time, he made a call to Moya. What's the situation on your side? She casually hasn't returned home for 10 days to half a month. What's the situation with her making a punitive expedition? It's not like I skipped home to participate in a music festival.
What's the big deal with asking?
After the brother and sister stabbed each other in the back, they both understood that the focal point of the issue was Rue 1. So Moya sent Luo Nen a video. What the hell are you doing? The content of the video was a short few seconds. It was actually Clara, the little temptress with the constitution to attract disasters. She pulled Rue 1 along to face a mirror and teach her the wave action. That's right. It was the action that especially manifested flexibility, coordination, and of course, the beauty of a woman's body. Luo Nen swore that he had only watched it no more than 5 times. He only turned his head to reply after he distinguished that Clara's electric eyes were fundamentally different from Rue 1's ice-cold gaze. Didn't you guys go to record? Did you guys record in the dance studio? Pretty right? For the sake of correcting Rue 1's gaze, we've been recording from the wee hours of the morning until now. Indeed, Luo Nen should be proud. Had he spontaneously grasped the crux of the problem? Actually, he came to a realization after Moya's reminder. With Rue 1's wooden and taciturn nature, her gaze actually wouldn't be that aggressive. There was even a hidden attraction to the opposite sex hidden behind the aggressive gaze. Even if it was displayed in coordination with the wave action, this was clearly the gaze that had been packaged and adjusted. As a conservative parent, this was the time to yell, "He's young, so he shouldn't learn well." But Luo Nen wasn't that kind of person. In fact, he turned his hand and sent this video to his group of friends. Then he asked Moya, "Anything else?" The howling of wolves in the group of friends was transmitted over at nearly the same time as Moya's next video. The video still showed Rue when learning to dance. Only this time, the entire BHD crew was on the stage. The 4 of them formed a group and stepped to the beat of the soundtrack. They danced explosively. Although it was explosively, it didn't reveal any legs or breasts. At most, it revealed a snow-white waist. But they were able to achieve coordination and synchronization. It was crisp and efficient. It was truly pleasing to the eye. How's it? Amazing. Luo Nen really admired her. Rue 1 lightly stepped to the beat and played the guitar. This was already the pinnacle of her external performance that Luo Nen could imagine. Luo Nen didn't even dare to think of this before he saw it with his own eyes. It's like that, right? Something like that. Does it feel out of place? Nope. It's pretty good. Luo Nen wasn't just being polite. Rue 1's dance was secondary. Her body's flexibility and coordination was something that the 3 girls of BHD were professional idols. Even if they were multiplied by 10, they still wouldn't be able to compare. There really wasn't any difficulty in coordinating this sort of simple singing and dancing. What made Luo Nen, who was familiar with Rue 1's temperament, feel particularly amazed was her expressive ability. Even though Rue 1's face was ice, cold, and not a single fluctuation could be seen, the expression in her eyes as she danced was the same as when she was practicing her dance in front of the mirror. Her eyes revealed a sharp, offensive nature. It was very easy to associate her fiery and explosive dance with an allure of danger. Is she putting on a show? Luo Nen didn't just send these words to Moya. He also sent them to his group of friends. Only after sending them did Luo Nen feel that this question was a bit out of the blue. But there were quite a few smart people in this world, and there were many by Luo Nan's side. Bamboo Pole, who had just been blasted out of the group, replied in an instant. He even took a screenshot of a moment where Rue 1's chin was slightly raised. She looked down from high above with a gaze that seemed to be examining and disdainful. She's super expressive. An expert must have helped her adjust this gaze. Who taught her? Through Bamboo Pole's explanation, Luo Nan confirmed a step further that his conjecture wasn't wrong. In essence, Rui Wen was indeed a highly dangerous and aloof existence. But this danger and loftiness were hidden. They absolutely wouldn't be exposed so easily. So that gaze was a performance that had undergone an effective adjustment. Acting was a relatively high-level method of expression. If his aunt saw this scene, she should be quite relieved. Yep, Mo, you might even be beaten to death. After a while, Emoya also replied, see, Rui Wen definitely has talent. Luo Nen sighed from the bottom of his heart. I really didn't expect. Hold on. I nearly let you get away with it. You said you stayed up all night for the recording, but in the end you guys did this? It really is a BHD recording. But Rui Wen doesn't have a deep understanding of this sort of dynamic music. Wouldn't it be great to let them interact a bit? Like hell, I'd believe you. Though he said this, Luo Nan admitted that this was indeed a very good start. Mrs. Luo Shuqing and Emoya, this mother and daughter pair, really did have a level in the area of educating and inspiring children, even though they didn't really get along with each other. I'll send this to my aunt. Let her have some fun. Don't. I'm sending it. Luo Nan, you're dead for sure. Hehe. Luo Nan turned his head to look at the second video after teasing her for a bit. Yep, it was pure admiration. But when he saw the tallest and most fit figure within the group of 4, his thoughts were evoked. He recalled the matter he had heard this morning. Hey, since you guys are together, do you know if the tweet about Shui Yuan has been deleted?
Oh, that.
It's already been taken care of. This matter is very complicated. Don't get involved. Since you said it's complicated, it seems like it really is. Of course. Speaking of which, in my impression, Shui Yuan should be the most worry-free. Why did you suddenly think of posting that? It's none of our business, but it's none of our business. Luo Nan was just about to ask a step further when someone tagged him in his friend group on the Hexier. Pay attention. Is there someone secretly taking a picture of that shadow in the mirror? Chapter 11:10. In other words, the same object was viewed by many people. There would always be some differences in perspective. Rui Wen's 2 videos sparked heated discussion in the friend group. The more people watched, the more details were dug out. The person who spoke was the professional bodyguard, Mr. Gouda. There was a large age gap between this retired soldier and the others in the group. He normally didn't speak much, but he was very sensitive to his profession. Later, he uploaded a video that had been intelligently edited. There was an eye-catching red circle circling the corner of the large mirror in the dance studio. There was a figure that wasn't all that clear, but it was real. The figure was hidden behind the half-open door. Clearly, Emoya had inadvertently recorded this fellow through the reflection of the mirror when she was filming this video. Luo Nan frowned. He turned around and sent the edited video to Emoya. Can you recognize who this fellow is? Is he from your company? Emoya replied a few seconds later. I can't really tell. Let me check. There should be surveillance cameras in the hallway. There really are some people in the company who send out internal videos in exchange for some cigarettes and alcohol money. Oh, it's also possible that he's an Saising fan. If he can enter the company, then he really does have remarkable abilities. And Saising fan. According to Luo Nan's limited knowledge, a small group like BHD didn't have any Saising fans in the entertainment industry. But when they did, they were often extreme characters. Of course, they wouldn't commit murder or arson. If they truly had strong evil intentions, Rui Wen would be the first to find out. Don't be careless. Let me know when you get the results. Luo Nan began to speed up once more. I'll go help Rui Wen with the procedures. What procedures? Luo Nan gave a simple explanation. Emoya chuckled on the other side, but she didn't say much. She casually sent Luo Nan a live video from the recording studio. From the video, it could be seen that whether it was Rui Wen or the BHD trio, their working conditions were quite good. Not a trace of exhaustion could be seen from their sleepless nights. Perhaps it was the dance exchange from before that made them all excited. Let it continue like this. Luo Nan restarted his morning exercise mode. Things went as he expected. After passing through the congested section of the city center, he rode the 100-knot bug and arrived at the Forest Wall district in less than half an hour. He saw the Lawn Town Welfare Institute hidden within the original mall. Luo Nen entered the entrance hall personally designed and built by Dean Wan and the children. He noticed that there were many unfamiliar faces in the rather modeled historical reception room to the side. Dean Wan glanced over from within the reception room. Luo Nan didn't say anything. He just pointed upstairs as a sign. He knew that the people in the living room all had serious expressions on their faces, but it was not a bad atmosphere of collecting debts, so there was no need to disturb them. The only thing that stood out was that Luo Nan saw. Di Weiwu was sitting upright in the room. Luo Nan could tell that he was having a hard time. Luo Nan had a few guesses when he saw this situation and thought of Bamboo Pole's report from this morning. He never thought that this wave of guests would be quite tactful. They took the initiative to say their farewells when they saw Luo Nan come over. Dean Wan didn't bother with pleasantries. He got up to see the guests out. Di Weiwu was the first to run out. He was so excited that he couldn't stop himself. He crashed into Luo Nan's arms. "Brother Nan, you must have skipped class." Luo, you are. You are. Di Weiwu wailed. "There are 2 more months. My life is going to be distorted. Take a look at Jia. I think he's a good role model. In fact, the vast majority of people yearn for that kind of educational opportunity. It's the vast majority of parents." Di Weiwu's unreasonable pestering amused quite a few people, including the departing guests. Dean Wan just nodded to Luo Nan. "You came a bit earlier than I expected. I just came to see if you signed it. If you're done, I'll just take it and leave. The hard copy is ready, but it looks like it needs to be verified online. Wait a moment."
Okay.
"You do what you need to do. I'll give this kid Weiwu a lesson first." There was nothing wrong with this conversation, but the guests who were about to leave were a bit more sensitive. Someone asked, "Online signature? Do you need to go through the vagrant adoption procedures?" A relatively young woman stopped and revealed a smile to Luo Nan. "Classmate, you came by yourself to get the procedures? You're so amazing. Are you also a vagrant?" It had been a long time since someone had spoken to Luo Nan like this. The corners of his eyes twitched subconsciously. Yes, it must be because of his voice-changing period. Also, his chin had begun to grow a bit of a beard over the past few days. His face still looked too tender. Luo Nan had a good temper. He just laughed and shook his head. "I'm not." Then, he led Di Weiwu upstairs. The little fellow was pulled away, but he still turned his head to back up the conversation. "Brother Nan isn't a vagrant, but he takes good care of me." The woman didn't stop him. She just turned her head to speak to Dean Wan. "Mr. Dean, we aren't forcing the hospital to do anything. We just hope that everyone can assist us and do some thoughtful work. We want a child like Weiwu to get online and find his family. He won't have any regrets in life. We will also pay great attention to the privacy of the relevant personnel." "What's online?" Luo Nan had some doubts in his mind. He asked Di Weiwu, but he was afraid that the little fellow wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. He simply threw this question into his friend group. The friend group has almost become a work group these days. Bamboo Pole's ridicule was completely unconvincing in front of the nutritional products he forwarded. But this didn't stop him from doing proper business. He was still the first one to provide effective information. "I was just about to report to you, boss. Right now, the organization level of Xia City's protest group is clearly on the rise. And there's a phenomenon of connecting with other cities. Internet Explorer is one of the most important symbols." This thing sounds familiar. Octopus popped his head out and interrupted. "I think I've seen it somewhere before." If you've seen it before, then it means that you've been to the Vagrant Exchange quite a bit. And you've messed with their internal network quite a bit. Meow. Octopus's voice was a bit messed up. Luo Nen also frowned. He had seriously researched the Vagrant Exchange a while ago. The question bank. He really didn't see any relevant information. What's this website used for? It's probably equivalent to a platform for finding people. Bamboo Pole began to send screenshots to the group. In the beginning, Online Wanderer was a social networking function module placed on the Vagrant Exchange's internet. It was probably a reaction against the mainstream secrecy, but the response wasn't that great. After all, very few people would take unnecessary actions after accepting the Vagrant Exchange's unique private credit system. I don't know when it started, but someone borrowed the function of this module to develop a fill-in-the-blank game. It's probably about uploading basic information about a person and their family. Then it was continuously expanded and perfected to form a relatively complete relationship and social network. Of course, this was done at the cost of exposing other people's privacy. Then, perhaps because there were too many blanks in the fill-in-the-blanks game, the more people filled in the blanks, the more difficult the game became. It seemed to be proof that a lot of unknown missing people had appeared among the vagrants who returned to the city, which aroused the interest and suspicion of many people. Gradually, the case started to spread. Recently, someone in whose city has launched an activity. They encourage all vagrants to upload information related to themselves and their relatives. This is to form a relatively complete network of relationships, so as to fully reveal the blanks in the network. Clearly, this wind is blown to Xia City. Octopus chuckled. The legendary missing immigrants and vanishing relocation. Luo Nan didn't know if Octopus remembered the conversation on the platform yesterday. Luo Nan looked at Diweiwu and decided to let this kid go for now. After Luo Nan let Diweiwu go, he replied in the group and asked, "Whose city?" Bamboo Pole responded, "Xia City should be fine. There are some cities inland. Don't doubt that I'm talking about whose city. They did some bad things in the past, and now they're rebounding quite fiercely. From what I remember, it seems like that branch president is quite close to headquarters." As for what his name was, Luo Nen really couldn't think of it for the time being. Gao Wenfu. Red Fox suddenly popped up. It was a simple reply, but it sounded like he was chewing on ice shards. "Is he your enemy?" Papercut followed closely and asked in passing. "I don't have the qualifications to become enemies with him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it to Xia City alive." Red Fox spoke calmly. "However, this person is undoubtedly the leader of Hu City. He has thousands upon thousands of disciples, and disciples. His influence radiates far and wide. He might have clashed with him that time." "I understand." Luo Nan thought for a moment. He didn't have a deep impression of this person. Red Fox must have participated in the summit that day, but he didn't sit in the core circle. Octopus suddenly had a strange thought. They all have the surname Gao. Celestial Master Gao and Brother Gauda, are you related to them? They're out of my league. Gauda's answer was very simple. Dean One had already sent off the guests at this time. He came up to help Luo Nan complete the signing and authentication procedures. Though it was complicated, it didn't take much time. Luo Nan took the opportunity to ask about the origins of the guests. Sure enough, they came from the vagrant camp in the Trigate district. They even specially hired a very famous social activist. She was the woman who had asked the question. "It looks like this demonstration won't stop anytime soon. They can't be going door to door to check the vagrants who have entered the adoption process, right?" Dean One shook his head. Right now, they hope to establish contact with the vagrants on this channel through various welfare homes. It can only be said to be a request. Their attitude is okay. It's also possible that the minor vagrant children aren't the main focus of this activity. Is it because the majority of the missing are adults? Dean One nodded silently. Luo Nan let out a breath and didn't say anything more. Though the current vagrant demonstration and other events were equivalent to adding chaos to Luo Nan's global census from a certain perspective, Luo Nan didn't care about this. He wasn't the instigator of the chaos. People who were worried about the chaos often doubted their ability to uncover the truth. Luo Nan was very confident in himself. "Thank you, Dean Wan. I'm going to continue with the procedures." "Wait a moment." "Huh." Dean Wan stopped Luo Nan. He took out a ball-shaped object from his pocket and handed it over. This little toy was a bit like the incense basket used in ancient times for incense. It was perfectly round and its surface was a hollow structure. It was extremely detailed, but there weren't many patterns that could be discerned. The veined patterns were relatively abstract. Luo Nen couldn't see the material. He held it in his hand and pinched it. It was quite hard, but the luster of its surface structure made it seem like it would break easily. What's this? Chapter 1111. Dinwan thought for a moment. Let's call it the seismograph for now.
Huh.
Thanks to you, I was able to make a trip to the 70 format laboratory. I more or less gained something. This was the truth. However, Luo Nan rarely talked about this information with Dinwan. He just had a tacit understanding in his heart. Suddenly speaking of this aroused Luo Nan's curiosity. I've never asked Din. Have you found the source of the divine revelation? I haven't. Dinwan never denied that his extraordinary power and knowledge came from the divine revelation he experienced in the wilderness. He had been diligently seeking these past few years, hoping to find the true source of all this. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed this time. Dinwan himself was quite calm. Order doesn't equal smoothness. Perhaps it's just a confirmation of our current ignorance. Dinwan's words were sometimes even more awkward than Luo Nan's. However, Luo Nan had a conjecture regarding his understanding of the god's revelation. The core of the grassroots organization of the order of creation that Dinwan had created had far too many similarities with the school of creation that Luo Nan had come into contact with at the relay station. If the worn-out spaceship outside of the Sunwheel prison was added to the traces of information projected to Earth's spacetime, Luo Nan couldn't help but suspect that Dinwan's divine revelation overlapped with the research direction and target of his own family to a considerable degree. However, he couldn't divulge this conjectural information for the time being. It was very likely that Dinwan had already sensed it. Yes, this was tacit understanding. Dinwan explained the design of the seismograph. My experience in the laboratory gave me some inspiration and stimulation. You know, it's unavoidable to feel that the space-time environment we are in right now isn't particularly stable. Luo Nan went. Then he laughed. Dinwan continued. After returning to Xia City, that feeling lingered around me. I don't know if it's real or just my imagination, so I made this thing, hoping to verify it. It's mainly based on what I've seen and heard in the laboratory, and with reference to the environment on both sides, I made a sensor device. Of course, I'm still lacking a layer. There are many parameters that I can't fill in. If possible, you can try to complete it. Though Dinwan's explanation was not clear and direct, Luo Nan still understood. This should be a part of Dinwan's experience after coming into close contact with the Misty Labyrinth. Dinwan used the creation technique he was most proficient in to form a tangible object. Without a doubt, this was a good opportunity to observe and understand the Misty Labyrinth from a different angle. Of course, Luo Nan accepted. I'll go back and study it. I'll go back and do some research. The two of them did not exchange any pleasantries. Both of them were pure researchers, and most of their communication was through the products under their hands. Luo Nan tossed the seismograph up and down. The reason why it was called this was because Dinwan was quite certain of the relationship between the Misty Labyrinth and the Earth's local spacetime. At this moment, Luo Nan involuntarily thought back to the series of research that Peony and the others had done in Spring City some time ago. There was also the poetic metaphor of the wheel that ran over time and space. Alright, I have to admit that there are many capable people in this world. By the time Luo Nan and Bamboo Pole met up in front of the SCA office building in Xia City, it was already around 11 o'clock in the morning. By this time, they could go to the government department to go through the normal procedures. They could find a restaurant outside to get ready, eat their fill, and come back in the afternoon. Of course, Luo Nan didn't need to do this. By the time he arrived, his temporary secretary, Bamboo Pole, had already straightened out the procedures and people on this side. What Luo Nan needed to do wasn't just simple procedures. He needed to make further adjustments. Boss, you should have some sense of privilege. Bamboo Pole, who had just finished a round in the building, naturally pushed the problem of his busy morning to his boss, who had provided him with a generous reward. You should know that your entire family is a member of the SCA's high-level authority group. When it comes to the protection of identity information, there is a corresponding clause. In fact, When you were asked to go through the procedures this time, you could totally slap the relevant personnel in the face and question him. Why was our household registration information leaked? Bamboo Pole had ample talent for acting. He really did have the appearance of a hedonistic young master. Luo Nen laughed when he saw this. It was the SCA official who accompanied Bamboo Pole and waited for Luo Nan's arrival. His expression was hard to describe. Luo Nen also knew this person. He was deputy chief of the Xia City branch of the SCA. Last year, Rue Wen's identity was verified by him. This time, he was the one who came forward to receive her. His intentions were very obvious. In the end, he was a colleague of his uncle. He seemed to be someone who knew He Wane. Luo Nen spoke softly. If you want to slap me, I have an SCA employee at home, but he's the only one who would slap me. Plus, this matter was mainly because too much information was leaked to the school. Rue Wen's identity as a vagrant was a cover. She never thought of hiding it from others. Bamboo Pole nodded. But I still suggest that after this matter, the measures to protect identity information must be strengthened. Perhaps this little trick will be completely useless against a true adversary, but at the very least, it won't be a waste of time for inexplicable reasons. You're right. Chief Hu, I'll have to trouble you from now on. No trouble at all. I'm ashamed to say this, but our service really isn't up to standard. Deputy Chief Hu's attitude was even more humble than the last time they met. He led the two inside. Luo Nan didn't actually need to personally handle the specific procedures. Luo Nan had already given the SCA and the government system of Xia City a gargantuan amount of face by sending over Dean Wan's personal verification. Under Bamboo Pole's mediation, what Luo Nan needed to do right now was basically to negotiate and question. Of course, neither Luo Nan nor Bamboo Pole paid much attention to it. They changed the subject on the way. I made a little discovery just now. It's related to our cute, beautiful housekeeper, Miss Shui Yuan. Didn't you mention something about the game network? I just went up to do a bit of research. She's up there? So, she's a vagrant. Luo Nan immediately had a guess. Emoya had said something in the morning about being confused when one is involved. Bamboo Pole nodded. She's not just a vagrant. She's quite a senior in the game network. What I'm trying to say is that she was already registered on this website before it became famous. She probably just left the circle. Is she a member of the exchange? That's not it. I also did a bit of research. Miss Shui Yuan is a relatively rare city migrant. She followed her adoptive parents from Hu City to Xia City when she was 8 years old. It's been 10 years since then. She had been adopted into this adoptive family for no more than 3 months before that. It was also not long after Hu City released the Vagrant Relocation Act. She was one of the first vagrant descendants to be adopted. Due to the fact that the procedures weren't complete back then, and the fact that she was moving across the city, her vagrant identity was never revealed until now. It sounds quite complicated. It's just that it was complicated back then. Bamboo Pole spread his hands. Actually, the reason I'm telling you this is because if I can dig up her background, then others can too. Actually, I just casually looked up some information when I was drinking coffee in Chief Hu's room. I didn't even use any technical methods.
See.
Shui Yuan's vagrant identity isn't exposed. Once exposed, the trouble will definitely escalate. Bamboo Pole's judgment was still ringing in Luo Nan's ears when something happened over at BHD. And the funny thing was that Luo Nan didn't find out about this from Emoya or Rue Wen. Instead, he found out about this from a hot topic on social media. A short video spread across many popular social media platforms in Xia City. It quickly became popular and eventually activated Bamboo Pole's network sniffing and capturing mechanism, allowing the video to enter his database. Soon, the two people in charge of the Xia City branch of the SCA were left dumbstruck by the sudden explosion of the video. The place where the video was taken should be the office building where Ming Tang Culture was located, and the person filming it was most likely a paparazzi reporter. The reason they said so was because they had no idea where they got the news from. They blocked the elevator entrance and accurately captured the BHD team. From the video, it could be seen that the paparazzi were clearly heading for Shueyuan. Their mouths were full of words like vagrant, protest, mutant infection, quarantine policy, and other words that had nothing to do with the entertainment industry. The questions they asked weren't up to par. They just picked out the most exciting things to say. Look at the trio from BHD, especially Shueyuan's reaction. What kind of reaction could she have? The trio from BHD, who had just made some progress from being an amateur, had never seen such a spectacle before. Their beautiful faces turned pale for a time. They retreated and were completely blocked inside the elevator. But in the next moment, the people at the very front of the crowded elevator entrance all lost their balance for some unknown reason. Some fell forward, some fell backward, and a large number of people fell. And on top of the bodies that fell all over the floor was Rue 1. It was without a doubt Rue 1. It was unknown when she arrived at the front. She was the first one to break through the crowd from the elevator. She crossed the chaotic area on the ground and led the trio from BHD, as well as Amoya and the others, to quickly break through the encirclement. No, it wasn't accurate to say that they broke through the encirclement. They simply swaggered off. What's going on? Luo Nan was a bit stupefied. No wonder the internet was exploding. When celebrities from all walks of life were interviewed, all sorts of dark histories emerged one after another. But most of the time, there were filters, inappropriate statements, covert insults, and so on. It was truly unheard of for someone to overturn more than 10 people at once and swagger off like that. If it was a bodyguard, then it would have been fine to rely on brute force to commit murder. But the one who made a move in that instant was a little girl who looked to be a few years younger than the trio from BHD. What's going on? Luo Nan found Amoya's number and called her. He actually couldn't get through twice in a row. When he finally got through with great difficulty, he was showered with these words. It's the ones you've seen on the internet. They're cool, right? Amoya was clearly still in a state of excitement. If these words get passed to the reporters, you'll be an instigator. It's not that serious. We were just defending ourselves. Luo Nan learned more information from Amoya's mouth. The reporters that had surged over were fine. They looked like a surging crowd with an extraordinary aura. But in reality, there were only 2 or 3 reporters with interview permits, and they were all from unrated tabloids. If this was the case, then the agent who had been following them from the side was completely capable of controlling the situation. But Luo Nan never expected that these paparazzi reporters had actually been summoned by some anti-fans. That's right. A good portion of the people who had tried to rush into the elevator were of this status. Especially when there was an extremist mixed in. An unknown liquid mixed with paint was found on his body. There were also blades and the like. This solved one of Luo Nan's doubts. No wonder Rue 1 took the initiative to make a move. It was said that this person was originally a fanatical fan of Shueyuan, but at the same time, he was also an extreme anti-vagrant member. Shueyuan's registration on Yulian clearly pricked his paranoid and fragile nerves. He gathered with other anti-fans and summoned paparazzi to set up this trap. It couldn't be said that he was completely brainless, but this method of doing things was really hard to evaluate. Luo Nan didn't feel like wasting even a second on this kind of person. He was more concerned about the aftermath of this matter. There were far too many people involved in this matter. Rue 1, Amoya, and the trio from BHD all appeared on camera in this matter. And from the perspective of the people in the entertainment circle, this sort of sharp rise in negative popularity was absolutely not a good thing. Luo Nan and Bamboo Pole glanced at each other. Bamboo Pole had just walked through Luo Nan's online information database. Bamboo Pole turned to reveal a serious expression. A dam of 1,000 miles can collapse because of an ant's nest. Without a good beginning, the entire matter is destined to be utterly terrible. Look, this is the trouble caused by you people letting the high-level privileges go unused. Luo Nan shook his head and directly got up. You guys talk. I'm going to take a few calls. This short video began to ferment in Luo Nan's circle of friends and relatives in the time it took to make a few phone calls. Many people, including Luo Nan's aunt and uncle, called to inquire about the situation. There were even more calls from Amoya. There was no need for a professional like Bamboo Pole, to make a move in the group of friends. Information regarding this matter came from various social media and various other online platforms. All of them were gathered in an endless stream. The focus of the matter had clearly shifted. The attention of the masses of netizens didn't have the patience to investigate the complicated background. Who was Shui Yuan from the BHD group? Why did they dare to do such a thing? Why did they do such a thing? It would be hard to get any results without waiting for a few days. The true focus came directly from the video. Who was that young woman who overthrew the reporter and swaggered off? And then a certain busybody took a screenshot from the chaotic video. The popularity of this matter began to rise sharply. The main character of the screenshot was Rui-1. The focus was on her actions, but the core was her eyes. That cold and even empty gaze of hers when she overthrew the reporter in an instant. Even someone like Luo Nan, who knew her inside out, felt his heart tremble when he saw it. Of course, the essence of everything was still her appearance. Although Rui-1 wasn't the stunning type, her skin and bones were excellent. Moreover, she possessed a body and soul structure that exceeded that of a normal person's level of life. She was truly a flawless beauty without any blind spots. She absolutely could withstand the nitpicking and comparison of those bootlickers on the internet. All of this was quickly streamed on the internet this morning with the dance practice video of Rui-1 and the BHD group. It caused a further commotion. Chapter 11-12. Is this a publicity stunt? The amount of information about the demon-eyed woman on the internet had been fluctuating, but it maintained a certain level of popularity and did not stop for a few days. As a result, Zhang Yingying, who had been concentrating on the godson raising technique, couldn't help but wonder and sigh when she handed in her homework. Don't you have a limit? This isn't normal. The general public would only find it abnormal if there's a restriction, right? Zhang Yingying was quick-witted and immediately grasped the key point. You're letting this go? It's just tacitly allowing some people to add fuel to the fire. Understood. Protect that long-legged snow garden and divert the public's attention. No wonder Mingtang Culture's statement was so vague. That makes sense. Otherwise, you guys might as well just leave the SCA's high-clearance group. It's useless. Speaking of which, you guys are throwing Rui-1 out to attract firepower. It's alright. The comments online about Rui-1 are relatively neutral. We've also asked for her opinion. Rui-1 doesn't really care about such things. Instead, she's been practicing with Shui Yuan and the others for a longer period of time. In reality, this wasn't a big deal. The storms of the secular world couldn't affect them at all. At least, a considerable number of people thought so, including Zhang Yingying. The problem was, it wasn't just the secular world. The news had also caused ripples in the inner world. It had only been a little over half a year since the big incident of Miss 2 out of 1,000. She could have become a world-class tycoon in a single leap, but in the end, she had fallen into the so-called trap of opportunity of an extraordinary. This incident was still fresh in many people's minds. Needless to say, Luo Nan was one of the main characters of this incident. He was currently setting off a tsunami of impact in the world. The combination of legend and gossip was so perfect that it was hard not to attract people's attention. You have to pay attention. I heard from the boss that the Starry Sky Club has already received several rounds of inquiries regarding Rui-1. They're using the same old trick of 2 out of 1,000. They're probing and provoking. Yes, I know. They want to bind Raven to the value of the deep blue world as a key to open the door. Well, actually, I'm a key too. Luo Nan began grading Zhang Yingying's homework. He wasn't interested in this matter. In fact, he received the news earlier than Zhang Yingying. After all, he was a member of the Starry Sky Club in name. Key? I understand. Zhang Yingying sighed. What an annoying label. It's all over your head. Right now, there are many people, and it's not just those from the deep blue world, who are trying to stick labels on Luo Nan. This isn't completely intentional. They are facing an object that they are temporarily unable to understand, and they are unwilling to pay the cost of time. Sticking labels and making definitions is the most worry-saving. The problem is that there are people taking advantage of this trend to add fuel to the fire. This is quite troublesome. What was even more troublesome was that these messy labels, if they had a unified prefix or suffix, they would eventually be locked to something like keys. It would be useless to tear them off later. For example, the key to crack the new plane. The key to breaking the source of the mutated infection. It could even be the key to unraveling the secrets of the deep blue world. The key to unlocking the limits of human evolution. Of course, it was also entirely possible that it was the key to opening Pandora's box, the key to breaking the current order of human society, and so on. In short, they were all keys. Luo Nan had been in a special position ever since the Pacific Ocean Summit. He was the crux of everything, but he was also the key to everything. At least this was the impression he gave others. Even though he intentionally slowed down the progress of the global census to buy a certain amount of buffer time, he was unable to stop the flow of people's thoughts. Speaking of which, is it really that important to distinguish the source of the mutated infection and the extraordinary power? Is it that important? Zhang Yingying left a message on the private chat interface. That depends on whether or not someone is concealing something. How complicated.
I thought we never needed to think about this aspect.
Zhang Yingying's sorrow was not unique to her. At this stage, the spirit of the summit conference had already spread widely in the inner world circles. Even though the possibility of everyone suffering from the mutated infection was extremely small after the awakening of their extraordinary powers, people still needed to pay attention to this important development at all times. Whether it was the source of radiation or the trend line, these concepts seemed understandable, but they were complex and unfathomable. They all announced that the world they lived in was undergoing rapid changes. They needed to work hard to adapt. However, a considerable portion of people still followed the trend and advanced. If we don't do well, we'll become the enemy of the entire world. Think on the bright side. The entire world might be convinced. There are far too many inconceivable things on Earth. There's no need to talk about it in the universe. Let's talk about what's happening right now. Who would have thought that you, Sister Yingying, would walk the path of a breeder and never return? Protruding? I'm praising you. Luo Nan's attitude was very sincere. This was because the homework Zhang Yingying had handed in, or more accurately, the dumb sand breeding diary, was getting better and better. She was already quite clear about the special aggregation mode of dumb sand, which seemed to be an accumulation of sand. She even began to suspect that this aggregation mode was a reflection of some sort of external structural state. That's right. Dumb sand was highly related to the magneto-optical mica. Though the magneto-optical mica was rapidly growing in the past few days, and the disturbances it brought to dumb sand were a bit too frequent, Zhang Yingying was able to capture this abnormality under the premise that she was severely lacking in information. She was able to form an accurate judgment. This was quite amazing. And in today's homework, Zhang Yingying had even begun to consider searching for other order fulcrums for dumb sand to serve as backup. She wanted to volunteer herself. In fact, this was very much in line with the idea of the fantasy school's artificial fantasy breeds to transfer control, the kind that went straight to the core. I have to say, Sister Yingying, you really have an extraordinary acuity in this field. Just say it's talent. Yes, it is indeed a talent. In the domain of configuration and superconfiguration, talent was also very important. According to Luo Nan's understanding of the situation, there were some people who were very good at mathematical logic and derivations. There were some people who were able to use super strong insight to point out the specific structure and space-time distribution in an instant. Luo Nan could barely be considered as the second type. This was under the premise that he possessed a powerful mental sensing ability, and he had the endless space-time configuration fragments within the misty labyrinth as a reference. To be honest, it was the selection and analysis of a large amount of valid data, and it was forcefully fed. Zhang Yingying, on the other hand, did not have a strong foundation and conditions like him. Under such circumstances, she was able to repeatedly grasp the key parts of the dumb sand's growth process, had her own ideas, and effectively form a positive interaction with the dumb sand while still lacking a lot of knowledge. Other than talent, there was no other explanation. Chapter 11:13. Forgive Luo Nan for being biased. From his perspective, White Rainbow was an innate ability that had yet to push Zhang Yingying to B rank. There was no way it could be mentioned in the same breath as her outstanding talent in configuration and super configuration. Did Her Majesty Empress Wu make an error in judgment? Similar thoughts surged into his mind once more. Luo Nan did not use the fact that Earth lacked configuration before he came into being, especially the theory of superconfiguration. From his perspective, this shouldn't be a problem for Her Majesty Empress Wu. Forget it. I don't think. Luo Nan had already graded Zhang Yingying's homework and discussed a few specific details. In the end, he asked, "Do you want me to open up an experimental area for you in the Bloodwill Rings Fortress?"
Huh.
I see that you've already begun to consider the problem of a simple configuration systematic aggregation, but you don't dare to perform overly extreme experiments on dumb sand. Then you'll need to find another suitable target. Zhang Yingying used exclamation marks to express her emotions. Are you going to use the people of the branch as lab rats? Are you going to bring the Bloodwill Rings Fortress to life? Just from this question alone, it could be seen that Zhang Yingying had a plan in mind. She had captured Luo Nan's train of thought. It shouldn't be too difficult to use the Bloodwill Ring as a basic unit to create a simple consciousness system. After all, the structure of the Bloodwill Ring is simple, and the investment in soul strength is limited. There won't be any problems. Luo Nan was certain in his mind. Right now, the fortress has more of a creation component. The flavor of fantasy is too light, and it's a relatively shallow application. It's a bit of a waste of resources. Also, it's easier to filter out people like you, Sister Yingying, who possess the gift of configuration and super configuration. The chances of this are small, but there's no way to go wrong with this. Do what you want. Zhang Yingying decisively gave up on her plans to investigate further. In this domain, Luo Nan was the authority of authority.
Yes, wrong.
In this domain, he was the only authority on Earth. No one could compare to him. She would just do whatever Luo Nan said. Then I'll start making preparations. Luo Yanwei, tell President Ouyang, Gao Tianshi, and the others. They've been very tight these past few days. I don't want them to treat me as a spy because of a miscommunication. There were quite a few ability users in Xia City, especially those with fleshly bodies. It was better to use the psychic wave network to construct the Ring of Bloodwill. Recently, the branch had been researching the connection between the psychic wave network and the Ring of Bloodwill. Luo Nan responded with a grunt. Then he asked curiously, President Ouyang, why are you so nervous? You don't know. Mo La, who came over to visit his family, has been going in and out of the psychic wave network. He seems to be doing some tests. With such a top-notch assassin beside you, no one would have a good time, right? Can't we just chase her away? The problem is that President Ouyang also wants to take this opportunity to improve the infrastructure of the psychic wave network and upgrade it. That's up to you. Speaking of which, you really don't take it seriously. Luo Nan replied with a puzzled emoji. Don't think that just because you brought out the name of a global census, others will look at the whole world like you. That Mo La and many others might think that you are trying to divert the attention. Now, if you stop at any place for too long, someone might suspect that there's something wrong with that place. There's already a rumor outside. You're talking about the new plane, right? I don't care what other people think. Besides, their thoughts can't be wrong. Sigma degree, retract. Retract the information. Didn't you see the research results of Professor Wu Zuanliang and Peony's team?
Huh.
I can't say that their research has touched upon the essence, but I rather approve of the general trends and phenomena. Pure research is really great. If the matters of the world could be dissected and solved in this way, then it would be super simple and super blissful. Bullshit.
Don't be so sour.
For the sake of doing research, this sister's hair is falling one by one. Zhang Yingying directly used voice to complain. Reclamation seems like something that happened in my previous life. The so-called reclamation was playing the 10 days in the wilderness game. For a heavy player like Zhang Yingying, this was quite hurtful. Luo Nan said in passing, I'm really going to reclaim the wilderness tomorrow. When I come back, everyone can go to Frost River Reality and relax. Isn't the expansion pack coming out soon?
Huh?
Zhang Yingying quickly came to a realization. You're going to the wilderness? For what? To sweep a grave. In the blink of an eye, it was close to the weekend. According to Luo Nan's plan, he was preparing to go to his mother's burial ground in the wilderness on his solar birthday, the day of his mother's death. This was something he had been brooding over ever since he became sensible. He really didn't have the ability or the conditions before, but now he absolutely couldn't miss this opportunity. According to Luo Nan's plan, his schedule would quickly become packed after sweeping the grave. Whether it was the global census or some other work, they would all take up a large amount of his time. Before this, he felt that he should communicate with Rui Wen. Okay, it was his aunt who pulled him by the ear. She wanted him to care about the mental health of his little sister, who was at the heart of the struggle. It was obvious that Rui Wen had been excessively cold and calm these past few days. This made his aunt more and more unable to grasp the little girl's thoughts. Frankly speaking, Luo Nan didn't really understand. So, after grading Zhang Yingying's homework, Luo Nan turned around and went to Rui Wen's room, the small room at the end of the corridor. Rui Wen, I'm coming in? Everyone's sensory abilities were extraordinary. This greeting was just out of courtesy. Luo Nan directly pushed open the door and entered as he spoke. Though it was already night, the lights in the room weren't turned on. Rui Wen was used to the silence of the dark. Normally, when she was at home, she would just stare blankly in the corner of her room. Right now, this sort of time was becoming less and less frequent. This was because the majority of her energy was placed on exploring the misty maze. Rui Wen's gaze fell upon Luo Nan's body the moment he entered the room. It was like a corner of the starry sky under the serene curtain of the sky, seemingly dark yet bright. After a brief pause, a faint blue light replaced the room. It was the light of the virtual work area. Today I've discovered something.
Huh?
Luo Nan discovered very awkwardly that it would be very difficult for him and Rui Wen to have a heart-to-heart talk to continue. The reason was none other than that Rui Wen wouldn't pour her heart out to him. Comparatively speaking, Ink and Jerry were both a bit stronger than him. In his memories, Rui Wen's long sentences, especially those that were idle chatter and lacked a purpose, often appeared in her conversations with these two inhumans. On Luo Nan's side, her recent focus was completely placed on the exploration of the usable domain and plane fragments within the misty maze. What was displayed at the exit just now, as well as what was displayed in the virtual work area, were the reports of the exploration results. Chapter 11:14. I didn't come here to ask about the progress. Luo Nan really wanted to say this to Rui Wen, but doing so would be too deliberate. It would make the following exchanges more difficult. He could only grin. What did you discover? Fragments that might be suitable. Rui Wen was probably the person in this world who understood Luo Nan's pseudoplane plan the best. She didn't care about the practicality and feasibility of this plan. She just kept her head down in the mist maze, searching for the most suitable large-scale plane or domain fragment for Luo Nan to transform. In fact, the information about the existence of large-scale fragments within the mist maze was provided by Rui Wen in the first place. The mist maze was a fragmented world. Even the concept of a world wasn't accurate enough. It simply didn't possess the structure to bear material substance. According to Luo Nan's conjectures, it was extremely likely that it was the remnant of one, or even several previous worlds that had been completely crushed by a terrifying power. Only the lowest level of law fragments were left behind. These were originally untouchable. At the very least, it was impossible for Luo Nan to come into contact with them with his perceptual abilities back then. The reason why an environment like the mist maze was formed was most likely because it was connected to the space and time of Earth. It was infected by the space and time here. Perhaps it was also coupled with the powerful radiation of Sunwheel Hell to complete the outer shell seal. Only then was there the scene of haze and sandstorm that could appear before Luo Nan and others. Luo Nan had already caught a glimpse of these possibilities after cultivating the magnetite mica jellyfish and borrowing its special clairvoyance mode. However, he still needed to utilize his own visualization and configuration construction abilities of the large coordinate system to move within the mist maze. He needed to open a path in the mountains and build a bridge in the rivers. This kind of mode was bound to have great limitations. Or perhaps it could be said, the mist maze only displayed Luo Nan's appearance as an existence. When he tried to construct a fulcrum for his existence, he had already formed a permanent change in the mist maze. This was a bit similar to the predicament other ability users faced when facing the storm of the Abyss region. Only Rui Wen, with her inconceivable talent of body and soul fusion, could transform into a similar form of existence. She could travel relatively freely in the misty maze, and she could even capture the relatively complete space-time signals within, resonating with the overlapping and distorted waves. If the compatibility was high, it was even possible to teleport to the other side. Generally speaking, fragments that were able to emit and retain a relatively complete signal in a highly complex and chaotic region were all fragments of a larger scale. Rui Wen had followed this train of thought to explore the depths of the mist labyrinth, and the results were basically in line with her guesses. Luo Nan would occasionally be able to capture this sort of signal within the tree-hole space that he had constructed himself. But he blushed with shame. The precision of his probing was far inferior to Rui Wen's natural talent. Therefore, the main force of exploration at this stage could only be Rui Wen. Frankly speaking, the process of Rui Wen's perception, resonance, matching, and even teleportation was hard for Luo Nan to understand with his current level of understanding. He only knew that there were certainly risks involved. Rui Wen would suffer minor injuries from time to time during the exploration process. It seemed that the degree of matching and resonance wasn't enough, and the forceful teleportation was the result. For this reason, Luo Nan gave orders to Rui Wen, telling her to avoid impatience. At the same time, Luo Nan treasured the results of Rui Wen's exploration very much. Every time, he would thoroughly research and completely deny the feasibility of the modifications. Only then would he stop. Today's
Sigh.
Let's take a look first. Rui Wen gradually changed her method of communication due to her relatively poor ability to express herself. She no longer reported verbally. Instead, she used the notes she had prepared beforehand. It was very clear that Rui Wen had absorbed Luo Nan's note-taking methods in recent times. The presence of graphics far exceeded that of words within the contents of the notes. It was just that Rui Wen's note-taking abilities were built upon Luo Nan's solid foundation in sketching. Rui Wen's notes looked much more simple and unadorned. Alright. If Luo Nan didn't have a relatively complete understanding of the terrain of the misty labyrinth, it really wouldn't have been an easy matter to understand. Luo Nan scratched his head. He temporarily pushed aside the idea of how to communicate with Rui Wen. He did his best to translate the information that Rui Wen was trying to reveal from the concise graphics. You've made progress in drawing. Luo Nan first gave a word of praise. This wasn't a false statement. Rui Wen really had begun to feel a bit like drawing. At the very least, there was a set pattern. It was just that the structural model of the work area was a bit too simple. Also, why did the virtual work area lag one after another? This caused the graphics that Rui Wen drew to look a bit awkward. Hold on. This was an animation. Luo Nan captured the continuous changes in the graphics during the lag process. He was actually a bit pleasantly surprised for a time. It was rare for Rui Wen to ponder over some other ideas. Her train of thought was clearly becoming more and more lively. But then he was puzzled. It must be said that the drawing software that Rui Wen used did indeed have an intelligent animation function. It could automatically complete an animation trajectory after a limited set of settings. But it wasn't professional enough. It was fine if it was used for a normal business demonstration, but it didn't seem to fit well with this sort of schematic diagram. But no matter how unsuitable it was, it shouldn't have lagged, right? Could it be that the enterprise-level computing chip he bought for Rue was a defective product? Luo Nan was now an engineer with professional insight after going through Worker Zhai's long-term tutoring. His first thought was to cut out from the page and prepare to look at the bottom level. Huh? Luo Nan blinked. All of this wasn't important. The page that appeared wasn't the simple desktop that he expected. Instead, it was unexpectedly garish. It was clearly the UI of some social media. To be more specific, it was a discussion area under a certain topic. The topic was also marked with special words and colors. The demon-eyed woman. That's right. It was densely packed with discussions related to the demon-eyed woman, which was to say Rue 1. Looking at the automatic refresh rate, it was extremely enthusiastic. This was really a bit unexpected. Actually, 3 or 4 days had passed. Whether it was the crisis of Shui Yuan's identity and standpoint, or the demon-eyed woman incident, the popularity of these topics was steadily declining on the surface. It was just that in some small circles, disputes would erupt due to various stances or inexplicable differences, causing the local popularity to remain high. It was very clear that Luo Nan was looking at such a page. This sort of circle wasn't rare in cyberspace. But in any case, he needed to take the initiative to search for it, right? Truly unexpected. So it turned out that Rue 1 paid a lot of attention to this sort of matter. Luo Nan looked at Rue 1, and Rue 1 looked back at Luo Nan. Speaking of which, Luo Nan was already a bit worried that the little girl would fly into a rage out of humiliation. But when their eyes met, all he saw was pure and serene. On the contrary, Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. Originally, this was a very good entry point, but he forcefully pushed it back. He was completely subconsciously covering up for Rue 1. He cut back to the interface. It seems like I processed too much data. What the hell? Cover up my ass. But the matter was just this absurd. Luo Nan was clearly making things up, but what he said just so happened to hit the crux of the problem. While he was messing around with the drawing software, he saw that the back end of the drawing software was actually processing hundreds and thousands of drawings. Perhaps even more drawing materials. This wasn't a professional animation software. With such an enormous amount of data, coupled with Rue 1's high requirements, it was naturally impossible to handle. The lag was born from this. Why are you drawing so much? Luo Nan understood as soon as the question left his mouth. It was certainly because Rue 1 wanted to ensure the detailed effects of this animation. He could see that Rue 1 really attached great importance to this new discovery. I'll download a professional software for you later.
Hick.
Instead of messing around with the software, it's better to go check it out on the spot. Rue 1 nodded. Then she stood up. No,
Not now.
there's no rush. Luo Nan finally recovered. He knew that if he were to return to the topic of the Misty Maze and continue the conversation, then the preset brother and sister night talk would basically fall apart. He took the initiative to press the pause button. Let's study this matter in detail tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. Was he going to let Rue 1 skip class? Small matter. Luo Nan decisively bypassed this obstacle. He truly brought out the words he had already figured out. Oh, Rue 1, have you been running back and forth these past 2 days? Have you been too tired? Rue 1 shook her head and responded softly. I haven't.
Then
That's good. Luo Nan wanted to speak the following words, but he forcibly choked them off, making it hard for him to continue. This was because he suddenly came to a realization. He had just seen a new situation from Rue 1 that he had never seen before. He had never even thought of this new situation. He had prepared a plan for a heart-to-heart conversation, but now it was all for naught. At this sensitive time, the words spoken were like spilled water. It would be hard to take them back. Before this, Luo Nan really didn't think that Rue 1 had any psychological problems. At least, he didn't think that his aunt would be worried about her. But right now, he really couldn't grasp it. He wanted to play it safe. At the very least, he wanted to discuss it with his aunt, who had rich experience in educating others. He also wanted to observe her a bit more. And so, Luo Nen could only start strong and finish weak. He said a few words of nonsense about striking a balance between work and rest, and left in a hurry. Luo Nan was a bit at a loss after leaving the door. Going to find his aunt right now seemed to be a bit of an overreaction. Then, he simply gave Emoya a call. But the one who answered the phone was the manager of the Mountain Creek Band, the chubby Sister Meng. "Mr. Luo? Emoya and the others are performing. They transferred their signal to me. Is there something you need?" "Oh, I forgot. It's nothing. It's nothing." Only now did Luo Nan remember that Emoya wasn't home tonight. She had a performance assignment. Luo Nan hung up the phone and stared blankly for a moment. He hesitated for a moment, but he focused his mental senses on Rui-1. From his perspective, this wasn't a big deal. He didn't do this in the past because he wanted to protect his privacy. He didn't want to make things awkward for Rui-1 with her own outstanding perceptual abilities. But now, through the special clairvoyance mode of the magnetic photon mica jellyfish, he shouldn't be able to sense it, right? Rui-1 shouldn't care even if she did sense it. Well, she wouldn't. Luo Nen cast his gaze over after completing the relevant mental preparations. Rui-1 was still sitting in the corner of the pitch-black room. She maintained the same posture as before, but her eyes were closed. The virtual work area was off. That's right. She didn't need to display it, so of course there was no need to keep it on. The problem was that Luo Nan had no way of knowing whether or not Rui-1 was resting with her eyes closed, or whether or not she was surfing the web through her retina projection. Luo Nan stared at her for a long time. He wasn't sure whether or not he had been discovered by Rui-1. In any case, he hadn't discovered anything. This didn't give him any comfort. Instead, he felt his head swell. The problem was complicated. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.